Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Did you miss me? It feels good to be back. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
Did you miss me?
A little maybe here and there,
No.
but no, not really.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Well, guess what? Tomorrow is the beginning of training camp. Now, we will not be on the field. Practice starts on Wednesday, but the conditioning test, Tavondre Sweat, is tomorrow. The first press conference is tomorrow. Training camp is tomorrow. Football season starts tomorrow. And did you think that I was not going to be here to start a football season? You had to know I'd be here for football season, and I will be with you for the entire football season, as I pretty much always am. So what do we do? A yearly tradition unlike any other on this program, the Monday that the week the Titans break training camp. Ian, what do we do every year?
Expectations?
The official expectations. Jared, how are the Titans going to do? Don't ask me. Until that week. Now, I can tell you what I think throughout the course of the summer and the offseason after the draft and all that kind of stuff. I can tell you that stuff, but we do not officially stamp our name to it until the week before the start of training camp. So here we are right now. Training camp starts tomorrow. It's time for the official expectations for the Titans in 2024. And guys, it's not pretty. The way we do this is we take the entire schedule and we separate everything into 5 separate yet equally important groups. The games the Titans will win this year, the games the Titans should win this year, the games the Titans are a toss-up in, might win, might lose, the games they should lose, and the games they absolutely positively will lose. What we do is we take the will win and the should win. We combine that. We take the should win and the will lose, or should lose and will lose. We combine that and we split the toss-ups. I have the Titans this upcoming season at 5-12. Here is the games I think they will win this upcoming season. At home against New England. That's it. Ian, I don't think I've ever had a list where there was one will win on it.
Just a solo, huh?
Just one game.
Flying solo.
They will win at home against New England. New England is terrible. New England has very few, if any, good players. Jacoby Brissett's probably going to be their starting quarterback. They should have signed Tannehill. They stink. And even if it's Drake May, I think they'll win that game. Should win. At home against Minnesota. At Washington. Those are the 2 they should win. Toss-ups at Chicago, at home against the Jets, at home against Indianapolis, on the road at Indianapolis. Should lose. Green Bay, at Miami, at the Chargers, Jacksonville at home, Houston at home, Cincinnati at home, and Jacksonville on the road. And the 3 games that they will lose, you got to be honest, at Buffalo, at Detroit, at Houston. So again, 3 games. 1 will win, 2 should win. That's 3. And then there are 4 toss-ups. Chicago, the Jets, Indy, and Indy. Split that in half. That's 5. I'm not trying to crap on the Titans. I'm just being honest. We do the same exercise every year. This is the worst it's ever been. 5-12. And quite frankly, as I put that list together, if anything, and you may say, Jared, you are a hater. I actually think Minnesota might be more of a toss-up than it is a should win, especially if Minnesota is going to hold to what they're saying now and they're going to make Sam Darnold the starting quarterback. Then I think it probably is more of a toss-up than it is. Now let's just count it as a should win. 5-12. Are you guys prepared for a 5-12 season? And before you say, Jared Stillman is a Titans hater, which I'm sure a lot of people are probably saying right now when I say 5-12, which, by the way, I am very much not a Titans hater. The only team on the schedule, I looked this up yesterday, the only team on the Titans schedule that has worse than the Super Bowl odds and the Titans do at plus 15,000 according to FanDuel is New England at plus 25,000. And quite frankly, New England, as I said, that's the will win. New England might be the worst team in the NFL. So I know the Titans spent a boatload of money in free agents offseason. But when I look at the team, they still don't have a right tackle. They still don't have a right guard. I'm not going to have a starting tight end. They're missing maybe two, an inside linebacker. They are missing a reliable replacement. Nico Autry's 11.5 sacks last year. And they need another safety because Jamal Adams doesn't count. Between the fact that the guy is always hurt and he kind of sucks, Jamal Adams does not count. So the expectation for this season, for me, is 5-12. Now, the good news is, last year when we did the same exercise, we ended up, I think, with 11 wins. The bad news is that I do think that the model usually is always better than the Titans end up being. Outside 2021 season where they ended up with the 1 seed. But it just was kind of a realization to me that on paper, this is probably a bad football team. Hope I'm wrong. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to put the list together at be 5-12 and say, I don't want to get on the air and say the expectation for this season is 5-12, so let me make up some bull crap. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sacrifice the honesty of the program for the audience just to make some people feel better. So 5-12 for me it is. Ian, do you have a more optimistic approach to the season?
I do not. I'm actually one game less optimistic.
Oh my God.
4-13 for myself.
So don't say Jared's a hater because he's got 4-13. Give me the list.
Based on that, well, the will win is versus New England. Should win versus Minnesota at Washington. Toss-ups at Chicago versus Indy.
Both games versus Indy? Or
No,
just the one at home?
Just the one at home.
Oh, boy.
And then the should lose versus the Jets versus Green Bay at the Chargers versus Jacksonville at Indy at Jacksonville versus Houston. Will lose at Miami, at Buffalo, at Detroit, at Houston versus Cincinnati.
You think they're going to for sure lose to Tua?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's early. It's too early in the season. It's only week 4.
I know, but it's prime time. He sucks in prime time.
It's too. Yes, I'm going with Will lose at Miami, Monday Night Football.
Okay. I'm 5-12. And I knew when I put this list together, I mean, I went through the schedule and I, again, went game by game. So, okay, should they win this? Will they win this? Should they lose this? Will they? And I knew when I put pen to paper and it was 5-12, I thought to myself, oh my God. I was like, people are going to be mad at me. Now, again, I don't host this show for people to like me or to be happy with me. I host this show to entertain, but also, we keep it real. And I enjoy that. But I definitely didn't think Ian would have it worse than I do.
I'm not high on this team this year.
You have this team picking 3rd in the draft.
Just like everybody else.
I mean, my God. Is it really going to be that bad this year? And I asked that rhetorically because I remember, as crazy as this sounds, as much as you guys hate John Robinson, and I'm not adjudicating, I'm not, I'm not arguing the John Robinson firing today, but as much as you guys hate him, we should remember that for about a 7-year period or however long it was, the Titans were in the mix every year. I mean, even that first year with Malarkey, they were in the mix in December. They went to the playoffs the next year. They were playing, for the last game of the year in 2018. They were in the AFC title game. They won the division. They won the division again. And then obviously they had that 7-game losing streak, but even the last game of the year mattered against Jacksonville in 2022. So when we got to 2-4 last year and they traded away Kevin Byard, I was like, oh dear God. I'm like, as a radio host, I'm like, how are we going to get through the season? Now, Mike Vrabel was so passive-aggressive about everything that it actually was somewhat entertaining, as bad as the season got. But I don't know about you guys. I don't want to live through that again. And that was a 6-win team. And Ian's got him as a 4-win team.
Well, you have him as 5. It's not
I know,
much better.
but like, at least with me, people can say Jared Stillman hates the Titans. It's not true, but people can say it. They can't say that about you. You're the voice of reason, and you've got him at 4.
I do.
So that's how we're starting today's show. Expectations of the Titans. How do we feel about the fact that I got 5 wins, Ian's got 4 wins? That's bad. Even if you're quote unquote rebuilding, that's still bad. Like, Brian Callahan did not wake up this morning knowing that he's a first-year coach, probably not going to get fired no matter what. He did not wake up this morning thinking they're going to win 5 games this year. And yet, Ian has them winning 4. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Ian, does the text line work? I heard Robbie and Joe say today that
I believe it works.
Okay. So we changed our text line software. I have not thoroughly used it yet.
It worked fine all last week.
So we shall see. Get your thoughts in. 615-737-1025. We will hit you early and often today as training camp starts tomorrow. Now, if you're mad about the 5-12 expectation, I have a serious question for everybody out there that thinks the Titans should be winning more games. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.
what's the expectation we should be having for the Titans? Are we winning it all this year? Is this it?
I tell our guys.
Should I
all
tell
the time.
Jack and Garrett back there, who've been Titans fans since the inception of Tennessee, that we're going to win the Super Bowl?
I tell our guys all the time that we don't make any predictions or promises. So I certainly can't step out here and
that's good media.
And say
that's good media
anything
right
other
there.
than that. I will say this though: I am excited about what we've done, the players we've added. I think they're all, we added with Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd and D Hop coming back and Tony Pollard mixing him with Tajay Spears, and you get a chance to draft J.C. Latham, and you got year 2 for Peter Skoronski, and now you go sign Lloyd Cushenberry at the center. Like, I feel like there's some really exciting pieces that, if we can put it all together, I think we have a chance. And obviously, I believe in Will Levis. It's a large reason why I took the job, is that I think he's capable of being a really good player, and he has not disappointed so far in the offseason program. He's fantastic. Does everything you ask the way you want it, and I'm excited to see what we have. I'll leave it at that. I think we can put together a competitive football team.
Ian, Brian Callahan does not buy the 4 wins that you are expecting the Titans to have this year.
Is he buying the 5 that you are expecting?
Doesn't sound like it. I mean, look, let me just say this. Again, the disclaimer. It's like watching CNBC where they tell you what stocks to buy, and they send out a disclaimer saying, talk to your financial professional before making choices about your portfolio. Do that. Why are you here at 2:00 in the middle of the day?
I left my power cord. Why is it not plugged in there still?
So Joe just ran into the studio. He left his power cord. Did he
found
find it?
It is right here.
I mean, good God. So anywho, for us adults, wait, get Joe back in here. I want his thoughts on this. Where to go? Joe! I want to know how Joe feels about the expectations here, about the will win, the should win, the could wins.
He went to the bathroom.
Oh my God. Because if you, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask him straight up. I'm going to say, how many games do you think the Titans are going to win? And then I'm going to tell him how Ian and I have it. And then when he's going to say something like 8 or 9, I'm telling you right now, he's going to say 8 or 9 without looking at it. And then I'm going to ask the same question I want to ask you right now, which is, if you're mad at the 5-12 expectations, which again are based on the formula that we use every year: will win, should lose, will lose, and the toss-ups. Which games do you think they should win that Ian and I are not giving them credit for?
The YouTube chat says the Bears.
Oh my God. You're going to be a 6-point dog to the Bears at opening kickoff, unless Caleb Williams gets hurt.
And they're down on the Giants. The Jets.
I mean, again, you're going to be a 6-point dog probably when kickoff comes. A 6-point dog to Chicago. And the Jets have a top 10 defense in the NFL. And the only reason that team stunk last year is because the quarterback got hurt 4 plays in. If you tell me Aaron Rodgers gets hurt 4 plays in, I'll tell you right now that I think that we'll move. Ian, I think we can agree. You've got that in the should-lose category. I've got it in the toss-up category. If Aaron Rodgers gets hurt 4 plays into the season, we'll move it into the should-win, right?
Sure.
How many games?
Or at least a toss-up.
How many games on the eve of training camp, Joe? How many games do you expect the Titans to win this year?
8 games.
Did I not tell you? He was going to say 8. So I've got 5. Ian's got 4.
Oh.
We base this off of looking at the schedule.
I'm here for the pessimism.
Well, we base it off of looking at the schedule and putting things into 5 separate categories. Games that they will win. You okay there? You need a little oxygen tank or something? Yeah.
No, I'm fine, man.
Okay.
Keep going.
So the games they will win, should win, toss-up games, should lose, will lose. And so you take the will win, the should win, you take the should lose, the will lose, and then you split the toss-ups. I think they'll beat New England. I think they should beat Minnesota, although if Sam Darnold's a quarterback, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, Darnold's the difference maker there.
And I think they should beat Washington on the road. That's all I got. Chicago, the Jets, Indy, toss-ups. I think
Okay, so split those, no? You
split those, so that's 2.
Okay, all right.
So that's 5 right there.
Right.
Should lose. Green Bay, Miami, the Chargers, Jacksonville, at Jacksonville, Houston at home, Cincy, will lose at Buffalo, at Detroit, at Houston.
Yeah, I mean, but a couple of those shoulds. I mean, it's good to see your confidence in Tua. I'm glad that you're coming around on Tua then. No?
Well, Ian's
for
got
you.
will lose for the Miami game. I've got should lose. And it's the same point that I have here on, like, somebody, I guess Ian said in the YouTube chat, they're like, well, Chicago, that should be a win. And I'm like, you're going to be a 6-point dog when you kick off against Chicago, regardless of whether or not they won 7 games last
But
year.
obviously opening
9
opening
games or
lines
whatever it
for
was.
week 1, especially when you're talking about a team. I mean, it's,
I know,
it doesn't mean a lot.
But what game on this list should they win that we're not giving them? There is not a Carolina or the New York Giants. They're not on the schedule this year. And I can't look at it and say, you know what? This team should go on the road and beat Justin Herbert. Or this team should beat Trevor Lawrence. Even though I don't think Trevor Lawrence is that good, I can't sit there and tell you they should beat Trevor Lawrence, given the fact that the team, that doesn't have a right tackle, doesn't have a Danico Autry's 11.5 sacks, unless we'll see if Devondre Sweat passes the conditioning test tomorrow. But I'm sorry. You're not supposed to beat Joe Burrow. You're not supposed to beat CJ Stroud. You're not supposed to beat Aaron Rodgers. You're not supposed to beat Josh Allen, and you're not beating Detroit. So, look, maybe Will Levis is good. Maybe Brian Callahan is Jesus. Maybe Bill Callahan is Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't know. But I can't assume where we sit today that all those things are going to be true.
Yeah, I mean, you're just making predictions. And 4 or 5 of these games are going to be totally different than we think they are because those teams are either way better or way worse than we think they are.
But it could also be New England. It could also be that New England doesn't stink as bad as we think they stink.
Sure.
It could also be that Sam Darnold, who I think is a pretty good quarterback, who Randy Mueller, a coworker of yours at The Athletic, who's a former GM in the league, Randy Mueller told me that he's like, what Minnesota's doing if they go with Darnold is the smart thing to do instead of giving Cousins $, and it's better than sticking J.J. McCarthy in there right away. And I'm like, they might surprise people with Sam Darnold quarterback. So to be frank, Minnesota's probably more of a toss-up than it is a should-win game.
Right. But see, so all these teams, every team has questions, every team has unknowns, and we all have a general feel for all those. The thing about this exercise is that I think one of the most unpredictable teams in the league is the Titans this year. I mean, their defense alone, it could be good. It could be. No, it can't be good.
I don't think so.
It couldn't possibly be good.
I don't think so. In sports, I think we can agree on this, right? Outside of where basketball's heading now, because basketball's all about the three-point shot now. But traditionally in sports, you build your teams through the middle, right?
Yeah, but that's not really the NFL anymore.
I mean, I think you build it through the quarterback. I think you build it through these great
that's so running back, fullback, middle linebacker,
fullback.
Safety.
So I do think that the lack of middle linebacker matters. I mean, Nick Bolton on the Chiefs is not a bum.
Who gets paid in the NFL?
Roquan Smith.
Corner, receiver, and quarterback. That's who gets paid. And left tackle.
Okay, who are the best teams in the NFL right now? The best 4 teams last year.
Okay, the best 4 teams last year. You're talking about just the championship? Okay,
Yeah.
Lions, Niners, Ravens, Chiefs.
Okay. Roquan Smith, Nick Bolton.
Okay.
The Lions used a first-round pick on an inside backer.
He didn't even play. They were not good.
And I think that Fred Warner's pretty good.
Warner is fantastic.
Okay. So I think you don't have an inside backer.
Okay, so
where Jamal Adams.
Right, but let's keep going down the middle, though. If you want to go through those teams, like let's not just cherry pick. Let's go down the middle with all of them. Okay, quarterback. Okay, I mean, 2 of them are really good. The other 2 are they do fine.
Sure.
Running back, the Chiefs. Who I don't even know who the running back is. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Who cares?
Yeah, but everything else.
Safety.
The Chiefs have
Lions
a great quarterback.
Not good at safety. That's the front Niners' weak spot.
Think about this. At quarterback,
Ravens have a good one.
Think about the Chiefs right down the middle, right? Good at safety, very good at safety. Good at middle linebacker. Best defensive tackle maybe in the NFL now that Aaron Donald's out. Best quarterback in the NFL. Pro Bowl center. So other than
D tackle and center.
And Pacheco's not bad either.
Well, sure, but this is not what you would call one of the strengths of the team.
We could go get a running back out of Hillsborough High School, put him behind the Chiefs, and he'd be okay.
We play on the edges in the NFL.
I'm just telling you, find me some games. Find me some games on the list, Joe, that they should win. Should they beat Green Bay?
No, I wouldn't say should, but I think they absolutely can win that game at home.
So you would label that as a toss-up?
Sure. What you think Green Bay is some world beating? They could be good. I mean, let's see. Let's see if Jordan Love carries it over.
They had the Niners dead to rights, and if they could make a field goal, they would have been in the NFC title game.
Sure. They made an incredible run at the end of last year.
And you sucked, and your
sometimes.
best player is not on the team anymore.
Yeah, I understand that. But I disagree with your contention that the Titans couldn't possibly be good on defense.
I mean, of course they could. I mean, anything is possible, but is it logical that the Titans will be good on defense?
It's not illogical.
First year play caller?
Okay, but it's not illogical if your ads are as good as you hope they are, right? If your corner spot is as good as you hope it is, if your 98 is great and your second round pick is what you hope he is, all of a sudden a lot of the other stuff falls into place, right? I mean, you still have Harold Landry.
So everything that
you
is
have
a
Amani
question
Hooker
has to end up being
good.
most
of them,
and that's a problem.
Well, sure,
and that's
yeah. I mean, that's why I mean, they're not a contender. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I think that they have a chance to be playing games in December that matter.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joseph Robinette Rexroad Jr. joining us on the program.
Can I leave now because I'm on deadline? Can I go or are you
deadline?
Keeping me here? Yeah, I'm
you
right.
write for a paper now where you got to send it in so they can print it up.
Send it in if it's going to post tomorrow.
What are you writing about?
I'm actually writing about the Titans. Had a little chat with Will Levis.
8-win expectation for Joe.
You know, you got to like glow about you, Jared. I don't know what it is. You got to glow.
You want to know what it was? I just spent all week on the beach listening to the Robbie and Rex Road program.
Oh yeah.
And I literally was listening like I would sit on the beach and, I can read, but I'm not an avid reader. I don't want to like sit on the beach and read about bull crap. Although I did read the Jordan rules on the beach a couple years ago and that was pretty good. But I was like, what do I want to listen to? And I'm addicted to sports radio. So I listen to Robbie and Rex Road.
If I was on vacation with you and you were listening to 3 hours of Robbie and Rex Road every day, I would probably at least maim you.
Well, the good part is that the first day that I did that, you and Paul spent 3 hours talking about me. So it was really more about me.
Hours, yeah.
Then I told you that I enjoyed the 3 hours of me. And then you and Paul clearly, consciously
not
decided,
at all.
We're not going to do that anymore.
No, it's just whatever happens. It was stream of consciousness.
Joe, good to see you.
Okay, you too.
615-737-1025. Joe's got 8 wins because he thinks everything that might possibly could go right for the Titans will go right for the Titans, apparently, so that they can get to 8 wins, I guess. I mean, I'm excited for the football season, but I'm kind of depressed right now. I'm a little depressed. To your phones on at 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. Let's talk Hiller. That's right. I absolutely love Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. In fact, that's one of the things that I am kind of sad. Like, honestly, I'm kind of sad about the fact that I didn't get to talk to you about Hiller for a couple of weeks because I was gone. But I love Hiller. I do. They are the best. And they are celebrating 34 years in the business this year, and they're bringing the celebration to you with their birthday bash this month. From now until July 31st, enjoy a free smart thermostat with select HVAC systems, a free water test, $300 off new tankless water heaters, and buy 10, get 2 free landscape lights. Celebrate Hiller's birthday bash. Happy birthday, Hiller. Visit happyhiller.com today for details. It's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face truck today.
Rand Carthon able to make a maneuver, right? Make a trade, get into that spot, quarterback that was acknowledged as a first round pick and get him in the second round. You're exactly right about how you're viewed. But I think in Tennessee, he's viewed as their guy. Doesn't matter whether they got him first, second round. He was their quarterback of the future. They felt great that they could get him in the second round when everyone thought they was going to go in the first. I think they look at him like, oh, well, we got him in the second. It's a totally different ball game. I think they see him as their guy for the upcoming, years in the NFL. So we'll see how that works out.
Charles Davis saying on Sirius XM and NFL Radio, Will Levis, some people thought he was a first rounder. He did go in the second round. So let's not get too worked up. Again, Levis could be a freaking superstar. He has great talent. But I assume he's going to be that. Joe's sitting there saying, well, if this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens and it's all good, if this all happens, then they might win 8 games. Well, isn't it like the toss-ups? We give you half of the toss-ups. There's 4 toss-ups. You're going to win 2 of them. You're going to lose 2 of them. And so we give you the toss-ups. That's like if Tavondre Sweat is the man, and if J.C. Latham can make the move to left tackle, you're going to get one of those. You're not going to get both. It's a toss-up. And I hope I'm wrong. I've got him with 5 wins. Ian's got him with 4. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. And let me just say, it is nice to have the text line back. Josh in the text line says, if the Titans only win 5 or 4 games, yikes, doesn't that mean that we found out that Will Levis is not, in all caps, not the guy? By the way, when I read that on the text and I read the not the guy, it was almost like I could hear the Maury Povich show in my ear. You are not the quarterback. Anywho, the short answer to that is yes. If they win 4 or 5 games this year and they stink and they only beat New England and they beat Washington and they beat Indy once and they win another one along the way, Jacksonville, I don't know, Tua, then he's probably not the guy. But at the same time, let me just say this. This is now the long answer, which is it's a little bit more complicated than that. Joe Burrow was 2-7. Well, 2-7-1, and one of those wins came against you. Joe Burrow was 2-7-1 as a rookie. And yet, you listen to Brian Callahan talk about Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, and he's like, there was a come-from-behind win with Joe, and he was really starting to come along where we really felt like, okay, we got the guy. And maybe there will be moments like that with Levis. Jordan Love is holding in until he gets some massive contract. And midway through last year, it looked like Jordan Love was a backup. So that's my way of saying that just because you may not win some of these games does not mean that the quarterback may not be the guy, and that we may not look at it the way the Chargers look at Justin Herbert, which is that they've got a quarterback, but their team sucks. That might be the case of the Titans. But short answer, if you win 4 or 5 games in the NFL, chances are it's probably because your quarterback's not very good. And that is just, unfortunately, kind of a reality when it comes to all of this. One texter into the text line says, considering that the Titans were 6-11 last year, upgraded the roster, and will play a last place schedule, I think 8 wins is a likely outcome. So here's where I'm going to disagree with this. And I thought about this when looking at the fact that the division that you play is the NFC North, which has better teams, and they were better last year, but they're certainly better on paper in Detroit, in Green Bay, and Chicago. And I still think that Minnesota is probably, I put them in the should win category, games at home, and maybe J.J. McCarthy will be playing quarterback, but I really think that there's a chance Minnesota's going to be good. I don't think there's a chance you're going to be good. I think there's a chance Minnesota's going to be good. So last year you got to play the NFC South. So you got Atlanta and Desmond Ridder. You got Carolina, who sucked. You got all these New Orleans and Derek Carr. Well, now you're getting Jordan Love, who's about to be a $50 million a year quarterback. Your other games, your intra-division games, congratulations. You get your interconference games. You get Buffalo. You get the Chargers. You get Cincinnati. all those teams have quarterbacks. Good quarterbacks. So it's hard for me to just, again, that's what Joe did. That's what you 8 wins. And when you say they have a better team, that they upgraded the roster, I do think in several places they are better, right? Christian Fulton is out, and L'Jarius Sneed, if he's healthy, again, that's another toss-up, but L'Jarius Sneed in. Great. Your best player is Derrick Henry, and he's not on your team anymore. Danico Autry sacked a quarterback 11 and a half times last year. We don't even know if Tavondre Sweat is going to pass the conditioning test tomorrow. I can't say he's going to replace Danico's 11 and a half sacks. You don't have a safety. You don't have an inside backer. So it's not as if, oh, yeah, no, they really, became a Super Bowl caliber team or, something crazy like that. Josh texts into the text line and says, welcome back. I respect the honesty as always, and I hope you're wrong. I have a saying, no expectations, no disappointments. So are we going to say if they win 5 games, we're going to be okay with that? Because I know fans. I'm a fan. Let's say Ian's right. Let's say Ian's expectation of 4 wins is reality. I believe Arizona won 4 games last year, and they picked 4th. So that's kind of where you're going to be. Do you know how depressing it's going to be every Sunday? Like Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, when you turn on the TV and it's a game on the road at Detroit and they are just beating the crap out of you. Do you guys remember what it was like when Mike Munchak was the coach and Ken Wisenhunt was because that's what that was like. If Ian's right and they win 4 games, that's what we're going to. And I hate that. So I do understand, like, hey, man, the Titans went 6-11 this year. Great. Well, your expectation was 5. They outperformed the expectation. But it's still going to be hard to get through.
I hope I'm wrong.
I hope I'm wrong, too. I hope the Titans are like the Texans. Nobody thinks they're any good. And because nobody thinks they're any good, they somehow, some way find the quarterback and on you go.
I just worry the roster's not deep enough. And I'm not sure Levis is ready to be throwing the ball 30 or 40 times every game. You got rid of Henry, but I think Levis still needs a run game. So I'm a little bit concerned.
So there is one thing that I have been, just scared to death of when it comes to the Titans. I am not assuming it's going to be okay. And yet I talked to a former NFL player who I think has some expertise on this, who actually maybe gave me some hope. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5-1063 The Game. And we will be giving Sounds tickets later today at some point. So be listening for your opportunity to win that. And the Game Summer Ticket Tour is back, presented by Green River Whiskey. Join our own Joe Dubin at MJ's Sports Bar and Grill at 1253 Northwest Broad Street in Murfreesboro, Thursday from 4 to 6, as he gives away tickets to upcoming concerts in Nashville, including Bush, Train, Dierks Bentley, and more. Also get signed up for the grand prize, tickets to a Preds home game, Sounds game, and the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. For more details, visit theGameNashville.com/tour. Green River Distilling Company, Owensboro, Kentucky. Alcohol volume varies by product. Please drink responsibly.
One thing I know with Bill Callahan coaching the offensive line, they're going to play differently and they're going to be much more efficient than they were previously, simply because he's as good as there is. And there may be some lineup changes. He may shake up that, as Coach Levy used to say, shake up that Pepsi bottle and get a new group that works cohesively with names that right now you don't know.
That was Bill Polian on Sirius XM NFL Radio saying, hey, let me tell you this right now. With Bill Callahan Sr., or just Bill, Brian is the son. But with Bill Callahan Sr. coaching them, I'll promise you they'll be better. And I do think that they will be better on the offensive line one way or another. Ian, I don't want to co-sign for you, but I think you probably think that they'll at least be better.
Have to be.
With Bill Callahan Sr. coaching them. But they'd be better last year and then 3 days into practice. If 4 days from now, I'm feeling the same way that I felt about the offensive line, it's going to be mass panic on this radio show. But I am scared about the offensive line. The rookie left tackle is a rookie, and he's also a right tackle. The second-year left guard was terrible last season. The center, I'm good with the center. And we really don't know who the right guard or right tackle is going to be. But I had Ryan Harris, who was a starting NFL offensive lineman, played at Notre Dame. Now he does the Notre Dame games on the radio. He does the Broncos preseason. I had Ryan Harris on my Mad Dog Sirius XM show a couple of weeks ago. And I asked him, I said, because if you watch this Giants Hard Knocks, Joe Shane's sitting there complaining about their offensive line. If you listen to almost every team in the league that's not Dallas or Detroit, all they do is complain about how much they hate their offensive lines. It's like X's. Everybody talks about how much they hate their X. Everybody in the league talks about how much they hate their offensive line. And so I asked him, I said, is it because of the reduced practices that these lines aren't any good anymore? And he said, no, it's not about reduced practices. It's about the guys coaching them. And he said,
9 teams that had an offensive line coach that actually played the position, and of them 7 had actually played in the NFL. So this is a position that is historically woefully undercoached with people who don't understand what they're talking about. They can get other players in bad positions. So that's why you see Kansas City consistently go to the Super Bowl. Yes, they have Patrick Mahomes and they have Andy Heck, one of the best offensive line history of the NFL, who teaches technique that you remember when you're dog tired and when you're at your first snap of the game. So as always with offensive line, it will depend on the coaching and the techniques that the offensive line coach is drilling into players and whether that offensive line coach actually knows what he's talking about.
Okay. I feel very strongly when I say this, the Titans have an offensive line coach that knows the techniques and knows what he's talking about. And I actually think that what Ryan Harris says might be true. I don't know that it's true, but I think there's a chance that it might be true. That too many of these offensive line coaches, and his thing was only 9 coaches have offensive linemen as their O-line coaches, and that 7 of them played in the NFL. Now, in the history of the Titans, the 2 best offensive line coaches have been Mike Munchak and Russ Grimm. And both Mike Munchak and Russ Grimm are in the Hall of Fame. Now, Bruce Matthews coached the line, and I don't remember the line being that good when he coached them, but it wasn't as bad as they were the last couple of years. I mean, the biggest problem Mike Vrabel had, and I think we can all admit it, the problem Mike Vrabel had is his lack of experience meant that he did not know enough people. So outside of the 10 people he knew and the Ohio State people he knew, he didn't know how to find a coach. And he certainly did not know how to find an offensive line coach. Keith Carter comes from Matt LaFleur, who they brought in and hired Keith Carter. And I was on Keith Carter's ass. Then they got good. So then I kind of let Keith Carter go for a little. Keith Carter got fired because they were terrible. Now, I didn't think that was necessarily Keith Carter's fault, but you get to the Jets and you read Diana Rossini article and it's like, yeah, everybody there thinks Keith Carter stinks. And then Vrabel promoted the third assistant who had no idea. Look, I didn't watch him practice every day during the season because you can't. And even if you could, I wouldn't have because I was on the radio. But I think we all know that Mike Vrabel did a terrible job hiring the offensive line coach. So Ryan Harris might be right. Like, it might be that Dylan Radins wasn't necessarily that bad of a bust. It's just that the guys coaching him can't coach. And now the guy coaching him can coach. And Nicholas Petit Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
maybe PT can get it together with Bill Callahan coaching him. And while a lot of these, if Devondre Sweat does this, and if Will Levis is the next Dan Marino, and if Brian Callahan is the next Sean McVay, and if a lot of these things that are best case scenario, if Jamal Adams plays like he played 5 years ago, if all of those things, I don't have the business of just saying, oh, if this happens, it'll be great. If that happens, it'll be great. I don't do that. But the one thing that I do think might be, Ryan Harris might be right. It might be that most of these line coaches in the NFL are terrible. And a lot of these coaches don't know their ass from last Thursday when it comes to hiring a line coach, which is how Ken Wisenhunt ends up with Bob Bostad as his offensive line coach, who was terrible. And the offensive line, it's a different animal. It's a different beast. Those guys are like a pack. And so maybe when he said that, again, this had nothing to do with the Titans. We were talking about offensive lines in the NFL. And he's like, no, it's the coaches. There's too many bad offensive line coaches out there. Well, again, I'm pretty sure that you don't have a bad offensive line coach. And that gives me at least a little room to breathe. Austin says the Titans better pray Joe is right and Jared is wrong. If the Titans win 5 games this year, they're not going to sell any of those absurdly based PSLs. By the way, I went to Titan's house today. I did do the PSL thing, where we went through the PSLs. Me and my dad, we went through it, and I'll just say this without getting into the money because I mean, you have when the Titans said that they were going to build a new stadium and that they were going to have PSLs. I mean, we had Burke Nihill, the team president, on the show. I asked him straight up, what are the PSLs going to be? And he said, we don't know yet. I pulled the Raiders, and we went over all the different Raider PSLs, and they were expensive. And, but it's going to be hard to sell season tickets and expensive PSLs if you're winning 4 games and you don't have the answer at quarterback. I could see the Titans in the Dak Prescott sweepstakes. If Dak gets to free agency, and I think he will, I can see the Titans in the Dak Prescott sweepstakes if Will Levis proves he's not the guy this year, just because they're going to be moving into a new stadium. One texter says, every year Jared says somebody sucks and they keep proving him wrong. Last year it was Nick Folk, and look at what Nick Folk did. Nick Folk cost you 2 games last year.
He was much better than you gave him credit for.
Who gives a rat's ass? He cost you 2 games.
Still was better than we thought.
Did he cost you 2 games?
I'm not sure. Where are you coming up with that?
He missed the extra point against Indianapolis. You went to overtime. He missed the extra point against Houston. You went to overtime.
I mean, I'm not going to necessarily say it cost you 2 games, but
I mean,
he was a good kicker.
I'm saying costing your team games in the NFL normally gets you cut. Now, he was fine, but again, he cost you I heard Vrabel on the Pardon My Take podcast just waxing. Folk did a great job for it. He cost you 2 games, Mike. You might still have a job if you weren't so obsessed with your special teams coordinator who sucked. Cost you 2 games. Now he's saying Jamal Adams sucks. Thank goodness he's saying that, because let's see Jamal prove him wrong. So I pulled up Pro Football Focus and I pulled up the games Jamal Adams played in. And the first game he played in last year was week 4. So when they signed Jamal Adams, NFL Plus is a freaking gong show with as much gazillion dollars as the NFL has. They can't get an app that works right. So after all these trials and tribulations of trying to get the Giants Seahawks game on NFL Plus up, so I could watch that week 4 game to see what Jamal Adams looked like, he got hurt on the first drive, and it wasn't even a hard tackle. He went to tackle Daniel Jones. He fell to the ground, and he didn't come back in the game. He's a box safety. He's got 4 interceptions in 7 seasons. Ed Reed averaged 5 interceptions a year. That's a good safety. Jamal Adams sucks. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. More of your phones. Plus, coming up next, training camp opens tomorrow, and I am going to defend somebody. that I promise you would never, ever defend me. And I think the Titans have a problem. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Training camp starts tomorrow, which means that they'll get in around 7 a.m. or whatever. They'll have the first team meeting where Brian Callahan will sit down with the team and he'll give them the team meeting. And this is the, I don't know if you watch Hard Knocks, but the years the Cowboys have been on this, Jerry Jones gets up the first day at training camp and he always goes, I could be anywhere in the world that I want to be right now, but I want to be here at training camp. I want to be with the Cowboys. And the players get all excited every time Jerry does that. That is what's happening tomorrow. Then they have the conditioning test. Then the coach will meet with the media. Then the GM and the assistant GM will meet with the media. Surprising the president is not meeting. I don't know if he's not important anymore. Who knows? Anywho, before we do that first team meeting, I think Brian Callahan has got to nip something in the bud. And I am going to defend somebody who would never, even if their life depended on it, defend me. And that's Paul Kaharski. So I saw on Instagram that Arden Key went after Paul Kaharski. Ian, did you see that?
I don't have Instagram.
So I ended up seeing it on Twitter. You know, the For You tab is not bad. And although it can be bad sometimes, the For You tab, not that bad. So Arden Key put out on Instagram, quote, "I'm going to say it probably the first time in Titan history. Paul Kaharski, don't nobody F with you or respect you, buddy. Next question." First of all, does he really think that's the first time in Titan history something like that has been said? I heard a story. Somebody told me that there was a player that wasn't very good that signed a contract extension. Paul was still writing at the Tennessean. And so Paul put in the Tennessean what the guy's salary was. You know, oh, he signed for $700,000 and he got a signing bonus of $100,000 or whatever. And that the player confronted Paul in the locker room about putting his salary in the paper. And he said, that's what you do. That's what you're doing to me. And that the player said, dude, I got girls in this town thinking I make $1 million. So if Arden Key thinks he's the first Titan to ever call out Paul, I mean, Derrick Henry called out Paul on Friday. But here's the issue. Between Arden Key getting mad randomly about Paul, like what the hell did Paul do to Arden Key in the last 24 minutes? And with Jeffrey Simmons getting a complete rod up his ass after the media crapped all over the Jamal Adams signing, it left me with the disappointing sentiment that on the eve of camp, these Titan players need to be worried about playing football. They do not need to be worried about the local Nashville media. And I spent all offseason, the whole offseason program of OTAs and mini camp and podcasts, and I said, toxic positivity. All you hear is sunshine and lollipops. That's it. Everything's great. It's coach says it's great. GM says it's great. Everybody, they go on Taylor Lewan. It's great. Then they hear something they don't like and they get all mad about that mean Nashville media. Arden Key had 6 sacks last year. The same amount of sacks as guys I have never heard of, like Quentin Jefferson of the Browns or Michael Hoecht of the Rams. Ian, do you know who Michael Hoecht is?
Can't say I've heard of him.
Well, he tied Arden Key in sacks last year. And yet, here's Arden Key on the eve of training camp worried about Paul. Like, why don't you worry about keeping Tavondre Sweat away from the buffet? Or away from the bar? Or maybe away from the wheel after the bar? Why don't you worry about that as opposed to worry about what Paul said or didn't say? And then when Jeffrey Simmons got mad at the local media, and I mean, I don't think he was talking about me. I don't know. But when Jeffrey Simmons got mad at the local media after the Jamal Adams signing, I mean, he is the unquestioned leader of this team. And he's too busy worried about what the media is saying. That's embarrassing. And it shows that your head is not in the right place. And what it really shows, and what I'm worried about, is that this team is too soft, that this team is too sensitive, that Brian Callahan took the job and was told, hey, Vrabel was a mean cuss, so we want you to come in here and be nice. And so Brian Callahan came in here and he gave everybody a lollipop and he made every room a rainbow room, and it was all sunshine all day. And all they heard about was how good they were. And all of a sudden they hear something they don't like and they get sensitive about it. I mean, I'm sorry, but I need guys that hear something they don't like, and instead of go out there and complain about it, go do something about it. I just watched this receiver series. This Amon-Ra St. Brown, he gets mad about everything. And then he goes out there and he does something. But he talks the talk after he walks the walk. So he goes out and lights up Washington, and he gets up there and starts crapping on Diami Brown because Diami Brown was drafted ahead of him. That's fine. But to sit there and be like, our Nashville media too tough on us. Okay, Jeffrey Simmons, go to New York and see what that's like. Go to Boston. Go sign for $100 million. Go to Boston and get 5 sacks and see what happens. You will not like it. Quite frankly, go ask those guys. It's easy here. Oh, big bad Kaharski. Boy, I tell you, oh, big bad Paul Kaharski. We got to worry about what he said. Why don't you worry about playing football? Why don't you worry about trying to get this team to respectability? Because right now, they're not. Again, the Titans' odds to win the Super Bowl on FanDuel Sports are plus $15,000. If you bet $100 on the Titans to win the Super Bowl, you'd get $15,000 back. And you guys are worried about what the local media says? You guys are worried about what Paul is saying? Paul goes on the morning show every week and spends an hour and a half talking about me, and it doesn't even bother me. In fact, I kind of enjoy it. It doesn't bother me at all. But Arden Key, did he say something about Arden Key last week when he was filling in with Joe?
I don't think so.
So
Not
why
that
is
I heard.
Arden Key getting all pissy about this? Like, Arden
Couldn't
Key,
tell you.
you're not a rookie, bro. Like, you're in the league. Like, you drive. I've seen his car. He drives a great car. Worry about playing football. Don't worry about the media. And again, this is Nashville. This is, of the 32 teams in the league, probably like 27th in terms of tough media. And you're going to be upset? And Jeffrey Simmons is going to be upset? Give me a break. Do you know what this reminds me of? Do you remember Jerry Stackhouse? And how Jerry Stackhouse, no matter what, could not smell the coffee and was always, everybody was out to get Jerry Stackhouse all the time. It had nothing to do with the fact that he could not win a meaningful basketball game, but it had everything to do with the fact that people were out to get him. Remember, Judas was out to get him. That's what this is. So Brian Callahan tomorrow, when he has the first team meeting, and he talks about, hey, these are the rules. You know, this is what you're supposed to do. This is what our expectations are. When we go out to practice, this is what we're going to have. When we do this, we ask you that. Guys, you need to put your phones down. You need to put the Twitter down. You need to put the Instagram down. You need to turn the talk radio off. And you need to worry about playing football. And if they can't learn to do that, then they're not going to win a lot of games. Because, again, the Titans signed Jamal Adams, who stinks, and Jeffrey Simmons is mad at the local media. What was the line he had on Twitter? They try to be our friends or something like that. Now, I do think there are probably some people in the media that try to be their friends, and, well, you know that ain't me. So I ain't worried about that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I just don't want to hear any more about just, oh, it's the media's fault. You won 6 games last year. It's not the media's fault that you didn't have a right tackle. Don't blame the media. It's not the media's fault that Jamal Adams hasn't recorded a sack since 2020. It's not the media's fault that Jamal Adams is always hurt. You know what's crazy? For some reason, this big bad media, they don't have a lot of bad things to say about Patrick Mahomes. They have a lot of bad things to say about the 49ers. You know why? Because they win. Now, look, sometimes people in the media are disingenuous. The way LeBron is covered in the NBA, I think, is very disingenuous. But let's not kid ourselves here. The big bad media, they're out to get you. Jeffrey Simmons, the unquestioned leader of the team, says so. They're out to get you. Just, honestly, it's embarrassing. One texter says nobody likes Paul because he's an a-hole. I mean, Robbie and Joe seem to like him fine. So you can't say nobody likes him. But I don't disagree with the sentiment there. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get back to your phone, 615-737-1025. Plus, coming up next, there was a report last week that, quite frankly, I wish I was on the radio floor, but there was a report last week that kind of showed us things that we had talked about at length, that we had discussed, that we had broken down, and now we know what was true. And it scares me. It scares me of what the Titans wanted to do. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game.
Did you think you were going to? Because you were obviously in a lot of speculation, I'll say. I don't know how many conversations were taking place.
Well, I feel like it was close. It was close. I feel like it was, yeah.
You know something?
It was close. It was close, boys. It was close.
To who?
It
was in the playoffs?
Yeah. It was I know 2 for sure. It was, I mean, I don't know the other one. I don't know if that would have happened, but one of them I felt like it was pretty close.
What makes you
A lot went down between, that little saga with the trade and all that stuff.
That was Derrick Henry on Bussin' with the Boys. And we've now had it revealed to us what a lot of went down was. And it was in The Athletic last week, and there was a story that said the Titans had to deal with the Ravens for a 4th-round pick, a conditional third that would have become a third had certain goals been hit. I don't know what those would have been. My guess is it probably would have been pretty hard for it to become a third. So in order to receive a third, there would have had to be conditions. So what we know is that it was a 4th-round pick that the Titans were offered in exchange from Derrick Henry. And there was a report around the trade deadline in which some guy with a blue check mark, but blue check marks don't matter anymore, some guy on Twitter said that the Ravens and the Titans had a deal and the Titans owner shot it down. And he was the only guy reporting it. And it was kind of like, is that true or is that made up? And I believe it was Paul. I don't want to get this wrong. If I get it wrong, I'm sorry. But I believe it was Paul that said that that was not true. Well, guess what? We found out that that was, in fact, the truth. That the Titans were going to trade Derrick Henry and Amy Adams Strunk shot it down. And then Paul said last week that Mike Vrabel wanted to gut the roster for future assets and thus was willing to give up Henry in order to get picks. And since I think that Paul is a messenger for Mike Vrabel, I think that's probably true. So I have 2 separate thoughts on this. The first is I think trading Derrick Henry last year at the deadline would have been a horrendous decision. The Titans were 3-4 at the time of the deadline, and they had a rookie quarterback that just threw for 4 touchdowns in his debut. You're going to take away Derrick Henry from the young quarterback? He already doesn't have a right tackle. At this point, you knew Andre Dillard was terrible, so he didn't have a left tackle. He had a center who couldn't snap and was 270 pounds, and you're going to take away Derrick Henry. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, let's say that it was after the Baltimore game, like the Bayard trade at 2-4. They tried to say after they traded Bayard that they weren't completely giving up on the season. You cannot say that you're not giving up on the season if you trade Derrick Henry. Again, I know a lot of people are, well, that was last year, but the important part is just the thinking of this. That at 2-4, you're telling everybody, no. We still think we have a chance this year. At 3-4, you do have a chance in the NFL. And you're going to take Derrick Henry away? You can't argue that you're not quitting on the season. And I don't believe in instilling a culture of losing for young players. So if you were going to make the move to the rookie quarterback, which they did, you want to put more around him, not less. Well, that 3rd-round pick could have been, any pick can be anything. Tom Brady was the 199th pick. So any pick, I guess, could be something. But personally, I'm not taking Derrick Henry away from the young quarterback unless you're giving me something that's too good to pass up. You're giving me a 2nd-round pick, that's a different discussion. But a late 4th rounder with which the Ravens had a point value of 38.5 on the. By comparison, the 32nd pick has a value of 590. So the idea that late 4th rounder is worth what I'm losing by not having Derrick Henry there next to my young quarterback, or by announcing to my team and my fans that I'm giving up on the season, it's a terrible decision. And so they thought that making the team worse would help the young quarterback who they were going to put out there behind no line. And Vrabel and Carthon were like, yeah, let's do it. And the owner was the one who put her foot down and said no. Good for Amy. But the second thought I have with this is, if you're a Titans fan like I am, it is insanely discouraging that the owner is smarter than the GM and the coach. Now, look, Vrabel's not here anymore, and that's great. But I'll tell you, if Vrabel was here, I'd be going crazy about him too. I figured Mike Vrabel was smarter than that. Jared, we need the picks. Picks. Like, do you guys remember the 2015 to 2018 Cleveland Browns? When they just kept adding pick after pick after pick after pick. They kept making trades for picks and picks and picks. Now, the difference was some of those picks were first and second round picks, and these are fourth and sixth round picks. But even then in Cleveland, they realized, yeah, at some point we need to start getting some players. And it's more important to have players than it is to have picks. And I can only imagine being Amy Adams-Strunk and realizing the disappointment that she must have felt when they came to her and they said, Amy, we've got to make this trade for a fourth round pick. And she's like, Derrick Henry? Yeah. And she's looking at the schedule thinking, wait a minute, I got all these people I want showing up to the stadium. I've got a young quarterback who I am trying to keep being fed from the wolves, but it's probably going to happen anyways because my moron coach couldn't hire a good offensive line coach, and my general manager signed Andre Dillard, so I'm already probably going to screw him up, but now I'm really going to screw him up. If I was the owner, that would be a moment where I am incredibly disappointed that my football people have the idea that is that stupid. And I do wonder if that was a moment along the way where the owner looked at it and said, yeah, maybe this Mike Vrabel's not as smart as I think he is. Yeah, maybe I should demote my general manager and promote his assistant GM ahead of him like she did. So when I saw that report, I didn't see they didn't get anything for Derrick Henry. I don't believe in that. I saw that report and I thought, A, good job, Amy, and B, my God, these guys are stupid. Both of them. If they thought trading Derrick Henry for a fourth round pick was going to be a good idea. I mean, what a freaking joke. Yeah, we'll leave Levis out there, but we're not going to put any players around him because we need more fourth round picks. Okay. That's like I was listening, I was talking to the midday show when we were changing over and we're talking about DeAndre Hopkins and should they sign him to a new deal or whatever. And they were like, well, if the team's not going well, they should trade him and get a pick. I'm like, so you're going to take away the receiver from the young quarterback. This entire season is about deciding whether or not the young quarterback's any good. And you're going to take the young quarterback's receiver away. I don't think that's very smart. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, 615-737-1025. DeJuan has been waiting patiently and is up next here on the program. DeJuan, go ahead.
What's up, man? I think you're wrong on the idea of, players voicing out their opinions on an analyst that's criticizing that player. Think of it like this. What better way to build synergy amongst the team? You got a newcomer, Jamal Adams, coming to the Titans, regardless how you feel about the player. Somebody talks about our player, we stand up for him. Hey, Jamal, don't say nothing, we got him. Regardless, that's called building team. That's going to build chemistry.
So what's Arden Key standing up for? What's Jeffrey Simmons standing up
for the team? You talk about us, you talk about all of us. Let's be real. This is how a football team works. Not like the boring New England Patriots where you got to shut up and ball and let's just say yes, sir, or no, sir, when someone asks you a question. Yeah, like they saying these comments during the game or during practice. They saying these comments during the interview when they're required to talk.
When does Mahomes go after the media? When does Mahomes get sensitive about the media? When does Josh Allen get? You don't need personality. You need people that are worried about winning.
The Nashville market. Look at the Nashville market. Every time we watch ESPN, we're never talked about.
That's because your players suck, not because you don't have personality.
So I would rather be talked about for something than nothing.
You're not talked about now. Like Arden Key bitching about Paul is not we got NFL Live on right now. They're not talking about Arden Key complaining about Paul.
That's an analyst's opinion. But from a fan's opinion, if someone talked about your colleague, are you going to just say nothing?
I mean, again,
everything is for ratings.
Again,
so the way you
DeJuan, their jobs are not for ratings. Their jobs are to win.
No, okay, so you go
their
to the
job.
Titans a lot because it builds ratings, and I get it.
I go with the Titans because they stink right now.
Let's build some ratings on if you talk about our player, we got your back. You got my back, I got your back.
That's not their job. DeJuan, thank you. That's not their job. Their job is to win. Like, if you are a right guard, your job is not to worry about what the local Nashville media said. Your job is to block. That's totally different. And I understand the idea of standing up for somebody. The way that Tyke Tolbert, the receiver coach, stood up for Traylon Burks when Trevor threw him under the bus, which I, again, was with Trevor on. But I understand, like, the idea of standing up for your guy. But we don't even know what Paul did that got Arden Key all mad. And with Jeffrey Simmons, he wasn't calling anybody out individually. He wasn't defending any decision. He was just bitching about the media. And that's just because I think he's kind of sensitive. I think he's kind of soft. I think it's just reality. 615-737-1025 is our, and the idea of, well, nobody talks about us on ESPN, so good for Arden Key for Instagramming about Paul on the eve of training camp. It's like, that's what you're worried about? Again, I'm worried about improving on the 6 sacks last year so that he has more sacks than Michael Hoecht of the Rams, who I don't even know who that is. That's all I'm asking. 615-737-1025. More of your phones. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game.
You, Jeffrey Simmons, week 1 of the National Football League season, will be the first human being on the other side of the line of scrimmage
Painted nails.
in a game
Painted nails.
I can't wait to say that to him.
for Caleb Williams.
Most definitely.
So
That's
you've
gonna
got that plan?
Oh, it's gonna be one of them games, especially. I mean, he probably get talk smack. I mean, smack talk to his his teammates right now, but like it's gonna be, especially a game like that. My first game, like of course I missed the last end of the season.
Right.
It's gonna be the first game of the season. They got us coming to Chicago. All the hype gonna be around them, of course. So it's like that's going. I think when when especially like even primetime games, because everybody I wish I would have played the Miami game, but like everybody count Tennessee out,
right?
Which we all know. And a game like Chicago, and I'm sure they thinking we about to get beat out the like bad. So that also make me even talk more smack and boost me up a little more, make me get in a different mode as well. So I'll be in a different mode that game.
That was Jeffrey Simmons talking about, hey, the national media, they don't ever talk about us. They'll all be talking about Chicago. With training camp starting, let's not worry about what the media says. Let's not worry about what the power rankings have. Arden Key, let's not worry about Paul. Let's not worry about any of that. I promised phones, so phones will go 615-737-1025. Going back to the proposed Derrick Henry trade. Again, according to The Athletic, the Titans were offered a 4th-round pick that could become a 3rd in exchange for Derrick Henry. And supposedly the GM and the coach wanted to do it, and the owner put her foot down. Good for the owner. Dylan says Vrabel is smarter than that, so he was either intentionally trying to do dumb stuff to get fired, or in my personal opinion, he simply didn't like Will Levis and didn't care whether he failed or succeeded that season. I don't have an answer to that other than I don't think Vrabel was trying to get fired. I mean, I certainly think that no matter what they say, no matter what Rand says about how his kids loved Mike Vrabel so much, which I don't completely buy, I don't think that Vrabel, I mean, there was clearly disrespect between the two. Clearly disrespect between the two. No doubt in my mind, especially on the Vrabel side of things. But I don't think he was trying to get fired. I don't think he was trying to get fired. I think that what happened was these guys get obsessed with picks, especially because what happens is when you become obsessed with draft choices, and I get it, how do you get an Antonio Brown level talent in their prime for $700,000? You draft it. That's how you get it. You want that player? Well, you make the trade. It'll cost you 2 first-round picks, and you got to pay him $28 million a year, and it's hard to get that player. Like you drafted A.J. Brown. That's what you have to do. So I understand these guys looking at the players saying, well, we're not very good, so let's just get more of these lottery chips, and I will pick them. And that's great. The problem is that there's a nurturing angle to this as well, and when you have a young quarterback, that's what you have to do. It's why I believe in sitting the quarterback. Who's the best quarterback in the NFL? Mahomes, he sat. Who's the best quarterback in the history of the NFL? Tom Brady, he sat. Aaron Rodgers sat. I'm not saying everybody needs to sit, but I do believe in nurturing. And when you take Derrick Henry away, I watched the Dolphins Hard Knocks after the Titans played them just to see what HBO would have behind the scenes on a team getting ready to play the Titans. And all they talked about getting ready for the Titans was Derrick Henry. In fact, the Dolphins had what they called the 3 MFer rule. And the linebacker coach said, anytime he touches the ball, there needs to be 3 bleepers around him talking about Henry. You know what that means? When you fake it to Henry, 3 guys are going to go running towards him, and that means there's only 8 other guys out there. Take that away, now there's 11 guys out there. I think it matters. Kyle's up next and has been waiting patiently. Kyle, go ahead.
Hey, Jared, good to hear from you again, man. We
Thanks.
missed you. Yeah, the guys, they filled in for you pretty good, though, man. I was proud of them.
Great.
But I agree with you on one thing and disagree on the other, man, so we're going to have some fun. This team is soft. Jeffrey Simmons is supposed to be a captain. He's supposed to be one of those guys that tells everybody, don't let this stuff bother you, but he's a loud one about it. He needs to lay off Paul. Paul just speaks how it is. Let's catch for breath. But, I would have traded Henry for that pick. I mean,
For a fourth-round pick. You would have traded Derrick Henry for a fourth-round pick, and he dropped. But why? And, like, I get it. There are fourth-round picks out there that end up being good. I understand. But, again, if you do that, you're going to put Will Levis, again, you have to go back to when it happened. You can't sit here and say, well, they won 6 games, and so who cares that they had Derrick Henry? They could have had an extra fourth-round pick, and we're not talking about a first or a second-round pick. We're talking about a fourth-round pick.
Even if you know he was going to walk after the season?
Correct. I heard Bill Polian talk about this, and he says that the idea that you have to trade guys on expiring contracts because they may walk in free agency is a non-existent creation of the media. The fear that I have to get something for this guy. Because Bill Polian said, he goes, no, that guy can play a year for you in that uniform, playing as hard as he can to try to get a new contract. So I don't believe necessarily in you have to get something. I don't believe in that. Because I believe that when every team becomes a championship team, as you build up a championship window, that there are going to be players that are very, very important to you building up that championship window who may not be there when you're competing for the championship. And I will use the last window of Titans football, where we really didn't know that they were contenders, but they were. When Ryan Tannehill was the quarterback and they went to Kansas City, if you're up 17-7 in an AFC title game, you're a Super Bowl contender. I know Detroit blew it last year in the NFC game. They were a Super Bowl contender. Detroit could have won the Super Bowl last year. So the Super Bowl window opened for the Titans probably in 2019 when they made the quarterback switch. Well, as that group, that core, Lawan, Byard, Henry, Tannehill, AJ, as that core grew, don't think that DeMarco Murray wasn't an important part of that crew being able to grow. Don't think that he wasn't important. He wasn't on that team. Derek Morgan wasn't on that team. But those guys were important parts of what built it up to what it became. So when I think about how do I want to build up a young quarterback, again, I think in the case of Peyton Manning, yes. Like Peyton Manning could have gone to any team. Now, he went to a team that had Marshall Faulk at running back and Marvin Harrison at wide receiver. So it's not like he went to some terrible team, although they didn't win any games his rookie year. But I do think guys like Manning and Burrow, that those guys would be good no matter where you put them. You put them on the Titans with terrible coaching and terrible GMing, and they would have found a way. Just put them here with Whisenhunt as the coach, and they'll still win because they're Manning and they're Burrow and they're born winners and blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, I do think that if you're trying to grow a quarterback to become a successful guy, you've got to put the infrastructure around that quarterback to be successful. And I think Kansas City is a great example of that, right? And Alex Smith and Matt Nagy were not there for their first Super Bowl. But you can't tell me that Alex Smith and Matt Nagy didn't play a role in their first Super Bowl. You cannot tell me that. You cannot tell me that Drew Bledsoe did not play a role in Tom Brady's development. So when I look at the Texans and I look at what C.J. Stroud did, I mean, are we forgetting the fact that C.J. Stroud had a $30 million left tackle and a $20 million left guard and a $12 million right guard, and that they went out and signed him a tight end in Dalton Schultz, and they added Robert Woods, and they drafted Tank Dell? Like, do we forget about that? You want to put good players around the quarterback. Even if you can't compete for the Super Bowl, you want to have development and build confidence and allow the quarterback to grow. You need to put something around him that allows him to succeed. And again, a 4th-round pick, it's not nothing, but it's not a 1st-round pick. So I think it's crazy. I think the idea of trading Derrick Henry, if you traded Derrick Henry, because I went to the press conference the day after they traded Byard, because I saw the trading of Byard as the waving of the white flag. Now, they were 2-4. Remember, that team that went to the AFC Championship game was 2-4 too. The one that we just talked about, the Super Bowl window, that team was 2-4. So when they traded Byard, I kept asking about, like, hey, are you guys waving the white flag on the season? Are you guys giving up on the year? And, oh, no, Jared, you don't understand. We're not giving up on the season. Oh, no. You can't do that if you trade Derrick Henry. If you trade Derrick Henry, you've given up on the season. And so I just don't think that that would have been good for the culture of the team. I don't think that, again, you would have lost because you lost with Derrick Henry. Could you imagine how much you would have lost without Derrick Henry? So you would have lost. And again, I just don't believe in instilling a culture of losing. I just don't believe in it. And I don't believe that it helps out young quarterbacks, and I don't think it helps develop young players. And again, the Titans were just so bad for so long. They were so helpless in the Wisenhunt era. And he's out. And in comes DeMarco Murray. And in comes Eric Decker. And in comes Rashard Matthews. Even in 2019, Delaney Walker was not a big part of that 19 team. He played like 3 games. But in terms of the development of Lawan and Henry and Conklin and that group, I think Delaney Walker was a big part of it. And so when it comes to Will Levis and you're trying at that point in time to grow him as a young quarterback, the last thing I want to do is take away Derrick Henry, take away the focal point of the offense, go into the room and tell everybody, hey guys, I know that we're a month into the season. I know you guys work out every day. And I know you guys risk your lives when you play on Sunday because a collision could end your life. And I know that we talk about compete and finish and focus. Well, we're 6 games in and we're giving up. All right, everybody, we'll see you next week. Get ready for the game. No, you can't do that. And that's what they would have done by trading Derrick Henry for a 4th. Sometimes guys make trades. It's like, hey, man, I'm sorry, I got to make this trade. That is not, a 4th is not one of them. 615-7. It's not fantasy football. It's not Madden. It's not EA Sports. It's real life stuff. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. So I was off last week, and I missed what I felt like is truly, annually, the single least important thing that goes on around here. We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I've never worn a credential in my life and was always for 17 years able to get into SEC Media Day without a credential. I had to go back to the room today and get my credential to get in. So that's one of the biggest changes I see. It's not like it used to be.
That was Nick Saban last week from SEC Media Days in Dallas. I had to go back to my room. Get my credential. Let me just say something just so I have it out there. It makes me sad that Floyd's not around to see Bill and Nick in the media, because no matter what he would say, or I guess in this case didn't say, Floyd, I don't want to speak for him, but I do feel like he loved doing the show. That he got along with us, we got along with him, that we enjoyed chopping it up and bull crapping for 4 hours a day.
I think overall he was pretty good. Yeah, I think so.
But deep down inside, he was embarrassed by the fact that he was on the radio. When it came to his football people, when it came to John Robinson, who he worked with in New England, when it came to Nick Saban and Bill Belichick, and we'd sit there and get these exclusive interviews with them, and I think it embarrassed him a little bit to be sitting down there with Nick Saban and to be talking about, interviews and things like that. And, because they're ball guys.
He wants to be a football guy.
He always looked at himself as a football guy and not as a media person. I talked to Mike Lombardi about this at the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and we were actually talking about Floyd. And Lombardi told me, he's like, look, man, I mean, I can do as many shows as I need to do, but I feel in my heart like I'm a football guy. Mark Dominic, same thing. But I think it would have comforted him to see Bill and Nick, and it's like, yeah, this is the circle of life, and now you're doing the media, and you're great at it. Polian's doing it. Like, it was great. It kills me. Now, SEC Media Days last week in Dallas. Ian, you were here. I was in the Bahamas. Did you keep up at all with what went on at SEC Media Days last year in Dallas?
Last week?
Yes, last year. What am I thinking about? Last week.
I mean, we did a little bit, like, hey, so-and-so's talking a little bit today. We played a little bit of Clark Lee, his press conference. We talked a little bit.
Let me say, I do like Clark. I have a lot of respect for Clark, and I'm hoping for a good year for him. And I think he's a good man. Last year was not to their standards, but continue.
So okay. We talked a little bit about the Vols, but in general, not really.
Did I miss anything?
No, you didn't. They don't even send any of the good players anymore.
Okay. So years ago, and I used to do radio in Louisville, Kentucky, and obviously that's more of a college town than we are because we have pro sports and whatnot. But media days used to be a big deal because media days were like the unofficial kickoff to the season. And to your point, there were real players. I remember one year when I was in Louisville, we went to media days and we had Charlie Strong on the show and he talked for 20 minutes, and we had Teddy Bridgewater on the show and he talked for 20 minutes. And then the next year we went to the ACC media days and they gave us everybody. We had Dabo Sweeney and Jimbo Fisher and everybody except Jameis Winston you could have. We had them all. It was great. And I mean, we were talking about ball, and it was kind of the unofficial start of the season was SEC media days. I find SEC media days to be completely pointless. Every year. And quite frankly, I think the audience kind of hates it too. I think the audience hates the idea of, Missouri football talked at the podium today. What do we think about Missouri football this upcoming season? And God bless Caroline. And I love that woman with all my heart. But her posts about SEC media days bother me because she posts like, oh, it's SEC media days. I'm so happy. I'm like, you're happy for what?
College football fans love it.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
No, they do not.
Real college football fans, because you hate college football.
They
but
do
if
not.
real college football fans love it.
They do not. This city, this show is the best show, and this is the number one, this is the show. And this city loves college football. And we do talk college football on this show. Granted, we talk a lot more Titans because the Titans are more popular. But this city loves college football. I can promise you, I don't think this city cares about what LSU's coach had to say at media days. I don't even think Caroline cares about what LSU's coach had to say at media days. I think she just likes going to hang out with all of her friends that she doesn't see all around the Southeast. That's why I think she likes going.
I'm not sure fans necessarily care too much about what's being said. It's just the overall, aura of college football beginning.
Here's when I realized that conference media days were stupid. It was the year of our Lord 2018. And the Predators were the best team in the NHL. They got knocked out in the second round of the playoffs. And Floyd and I go to Atlanta, Georgia. And we ended up having to sit down with Nick Saban, like Tony Soprano, we had a sit down. We ended up getting a sit down with Nick Saban, which was great. But on like the second day of SEC media days, I was sitting there and I was sad. Like I was depressed, like legitimately. I texted my dad, and I'm not afraid to say this. I texted my dad and I said, I think I'm starting to lose my excitement for doing the radio show. I really said that. And again, this was 6 years ago. And I said, I think I'm losing my excitement. My dad texted me back and said, hey man, football season's about to start. You got a lot going on in your life. Trust me, it's not about the radio. It's just, it's kind of a dead time. I was like, yeah, I guess. And then that day, Floyd and I taped an interview with Aaron Murray. You remember this one. We taped an interview with Aaron Murray. And Aaron Murray said in the interview that he thought Jeremy Pruitt didn't have what it took to be a good coach. And I remember when he said it, I was like, oh, that's good. So SEC Media Days in Atlanta was such a sleep town at this point. It was so boring, so nothing. I texted Joe, who was with the Tennessean at the time. And I said to Joe Rexroad, I said, dude, Aaron Murray just came on our show and said that Jeremy Pruitt's not going to be a good head coach. And because nothing goes on at these media days, Joe was like, what? He did? And Ian, I had you send me the Aaron Murray interview, and I sent it to Joe, and I told him, I said, it's going to run at 3:45. And at 3:46, the Knoxville News Sentinel ran a story that was former Georgia quarterback Aaron Murray says Jeremy Pruitt won't be a good coach. By the way, he was right. But that blew up. And the next day, I remember coming back into the hotel room, turning on the TV, and Feinbaum was on SportsCenter screaming, I don't care what Aaron Murray has to say. And I thought to myself, these media days are so pointless and so stupid that one tiny little nugget on our show that I blew up has now become like the number 2 topic on SportsCenter. That's how pointless these media days are. A couple years ago, I took off SEC Media Days, and Caroline went, and I was like sitting there listening to it, and they were talking about Florida and Missouri or something like that, and I was like, oh, okay. And a buddy of mine called me and said, hey, dude, when are Media Days over? And then last year, we go to Media Days because they're here in Nashville, and the Titans signed DeAndre Hopkins. And I'm out on the lake the day before when they signed DeAndre. And I told Caroline, I said, I am not talking SEC football tomorrow. Because I don't think people in their cars driving home right now from work are going to be sitting there worried about what the Vandy coach, no disrespect, Clark, I love you, are going to be worried about that compared to signing DeAndre Hopkins. So Greg, the station and ESPN had already booked Greg McElroy, so he was scheduled to come on. And Greg McElroy sits down. I look at Greg McElroy. I said, we're talking DeAndre to the Titans. You cool with that? He said, yeah, I'm cool with that. I said, all right, cool. And we talked DeAndre to the Titans. And the amount of people that texted into the text line that were like, thank God you're not talking about SEC Media Days stunned me. The only interviews we did that week were more like personal interviews where me and the former Vandy coach, now the MTSU coach, Derek Mason, who I love with all my heart, basically talked about how we used to hate each other and now we love each other. And I thought that was like a great interview, but that was more just like an entertaining kind of, tell me about your life and let's talk about how screwed up Auburn and Oklahoma State were and how Vandy, whatever. It wasn't like, let's talk about Georgia's front seven. Because I just don't think people care. One texter says, I agree with you, Jared. SEC Media Days is the most pointless thing all year long. One texter says, screw college football, NIL and the transfer portal have ruined it. I don't agree with that. I like college football. Contrary to Caroline and everybody else's beliefs, I like college football. I just think the media days are pointless. Nobody ever goes there and says anything anymore. That's why Aaron Murray going on a local Nashville station and bitching about the Tennessee coach is the number one topic around the country because nothing happens there. I mean, it's just, oh my God. And I remember last year when it was here and the show that used to be the big show in Birmingham now is like a digital show. It's called Next Round Live. And I was like, I wonder how the Birmingham guys that are like just freaking college football to the bone, I wonder how they're doing SEC. Are they having fun with it or are they, boring old SEC media? So I clicked a YouTube video and they were talking to some guest and they're like, what do you expect Lane Kiffin to say at the podium? Oh God, who cares? He's not going to say anything. And guess what? He didn't. So did I miss anything at SEC Media Days? No. Why? Because contrary to what Caroline thinks about me in college football, it is not a me problem. It is a college football problem. Nobody ever says anything at those media days. It's stupid anyways. And I am glad I didn't go. And that's the end of this. And I'm done. It shows you how pointless it is when I missed the entire week, come back on Monday, said, did I miss anything? And the answer is no, because nothing happens there anymore. Now, when we kick the ball off, yes, I'll be watching and we'll be talking about it. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. You can be excited about the season for the Titans, but I'm not sure you can expect it. And the one thing a lot of people want to believe, I'm also not sure you can expect that either. We'll get to that next on the eve of training camp. It's Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Not a single text into the text line in favor of SEC Media Days. Ian says people like it. I am convinced one person likes it. Caroline.
At least one. I know of other people that work here that like it.
Okay. So not one single person texts and say, no, I want to hear talk about the Florida Gators in July. Not a single person. I think one of the smartest things we've done.
Well, not Florida. That team, Billy Napier, no one likes that guy.
I think one of the smartest things we've done on this show over the years is basically converting Trevor from a college football only guy into basically like our offensive line guru. And I think Trevor's great at it.
I think we even did a whole segment on the Titans last week during SEC Media Days. Anyways.
With Trevor?
Yeah. I think one segment we brought up some college stuff, but I know the first segment was we asked him about the Jamal Adams signing and a couple other things.
I bet he loved it too. I bet he loves the Jamal Adams signing.
He did.
Oh, God.
He said he thought it was a great move for the Titans. Low risk.
I am going to get on that ass tomorrow at 4:30. I can promise you that. So we've got a weird obsession in our culture today when it comes to our media. The media reports something we don't like, or they have an opinion about something that we don't like. And it's, well, I don't trust that show. I don't trust that show. I don't trust that network. I don't trust that host. And like, okay, fine, whatever. You can do whatever you want. But on the Stillman and Company program, every year on the Monday of the week that training camp starts, which is today for this year, we have a time-honored tradition in which we go over the games that the Titans will win, the games the Titans should win, the games the Titans should lose, the games the Titans will lose, and the toss-up games. We categorize each game, and then from there, we form our official expectations. It is not a prediction, and it is also not like, oh, well, I think they're going to win 9 games, so let me come up with it. No, it's on the road at Chicago. Are they going to win that game? Should they win that game? Are they going to lose that game? Should they lose that game? Is it a toss-up? This year, the expectations are 5-12. Will win New England at home. New England stinks. They will win that game. Should win Minnesota at home. Washington on the road. Now, I'm a little worried about Minnesota, but, it is what it is. Toss-ups. Chicago, the Jets, Indy. Should lose. Green Bay, Miami, the Chargers, Jacksonville, Houston, and Cincinnati. Will lose. Buffalo, Detroit, and on the road at Houston. 5-12. And if you think I'm the bad guy, Ian's expectation when he did the same list, 4-13. And so something I think we have to be honest about is the difference between what we are expecting to happen and what we hope to happen. And a lot of this revolves around the quarterback. Well, I'm here to tell you right now, the odds are not in Will Levis's favor. I went through it this morning. Over the last 10 years, between 2014 and 2023, there have been a handful of quarterbacks who have been drafted in the second round. Forget about the idea that Mel Kiper Jr. compared Will Levis to Troy Aikman. Forget about that. The rest of the league didn't think it. You didn't even think it because you drafted a guard before you drafted Levis. He is a second-round quarterback. In the last 10 years, here are your second-round quarterbacks. Derek Carr, Jimmy G, Christian Hackenberg, Deshaun Kaiser, Drew Lock, Jalen Hurts, and Kyle Trask. Of that list, only Jalen Hurts could be considered an all-pro caliber player. And yes, Levis showed flashes of having a lot of talent last year. But all of those guys, with the exception of Deshaun Kaiser, all of those guys had talent. Drew Lock has talent. Christian Hackenberg, you remember him at Penn State. He had talent. Now, he sucked, but he had talent. And so what I won't do when it comes to getting ready for the season, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to give Will Levis credit before he earns it. So when we talk about these games on the list, and I look at these other quarterbacks, and I'm like, okay, Green Bay, Jordan Love is about to sign a $50 million a year contract. You cannot argue that the Titans should beat Green Bay with Will Levis as the quarterback. Will Levis had a QBR last year of 33. Even Ryan Tannehill, same situation, had a 35. And nobody in the league wants Tannehill. I can't look at the schedule and say, you know what, with Will Levis, a second-round quarterback who had a QBR last year of 33 and who even you thought wasn't that good because you drafted a guard, I can't look at it and say, you know what, they should go on the road and beat Justin Herbert. They should beat Trevor Lawrence. They should beat Detroit with all those good players they have. I can't do it. So if Levis is the guy and he becomes Brett Favre or he becomes Drew Brees, because when we're talking about second-round quarterbacks, you know, Brett Favre and Drew Brees were second-rounders, then he should beat Sam Darnold or Caleb Williams or Jacoby Brissett. But even though I hope that's what happens, I hope he becomes Favre. I hope he becomes Brees. We can't expect that Levis will do that. And that's if we care about being honest. Vegas does not expect Will Levis to be that. The Titans over under, I think it's 6.5. They are not expecting Will Levis to be that way. The national punditry is not expecting Will Levis to be that. I love the Titans. I mean, I sat there today at the Titans house where they went over the season tickets, and we were talking about six figures in terms of PSLs and all the other stuff, and I love the Titans. But I can't expect it from Levis because he hasn't shown it. And for the record, I don't expect it from Bryce Young either right now. I hope Bryce Young can do it for his sake. I thought Bryce Young was a good player in college and, you know, coming out, I thought that he had a chance and I thought he was put in a horrendous situation. But I can't just expect that, oh, Bryce Young's going to turn it around. Same way with Levis. And if I were to go around and were to take the list of quarterbacks that you're about to play, and we were to sit there and do this discussion with everybody, you know, who is honest and unbiased, and we were to say, okay, Titans and Minnesota, Levis or Darnold, I think there'd be people that would pick Sam Darnold. Levis or Jaden Daniels, I think there would be people that would pick Jaden Daniels. And then there's other games where I'm like, as much as I love the Titans, you can't say Levis over Caleb Williams. You can't say Levis over Aaron Rodgers. You can't say Levis over Herbert, Levis over Lawrence, Levis over Stroud, Levis over Burrow, Levis over Allen, Levis over the Lions. You can't do it. And so while I'm going out there to practice on Wednesday and we're going to see Levis throw the ball and we're going to do what we always do, even though I've learned, thanks to Chigakonkwo, I've learned not to get too excited about what happens in training camp. Bad? Yes, you can see bad right away. Because if you put me on the football field, it would be bad. So you can notice bad right away, Andre Dillard. But I'm not going to get too excited if something good happens. But I want to see Levis look like Dan Marino at training camp. But I don't expect it. Because if you're being honest, you can't assume that that's what Levis will become. You can't expect that that's what Levis will become. And that's just how we ended up at 5-12. Or in Ian's case, 4-13. 615-737-1025. Add that to the list. 615-737-1025. One of my friends texted me and just said, damn, 5-12 with the crying emoji. And not the good crying emoji. The bad crying emoji.
Yeah. Let's hope we're wrong.
I agree. I mean, Now, here's the thing about the NFL and especially the Titans. If the Titans end up 5-12 this year, while I sit here and I say like, oh, that'll just be such a miserable season to talk about. I mean, last year's season was not miserable to talk about. It was miserable to watch. And I enjoy talking about a good team instead of a bad team. But it was such a tire fire last year that, I mean, it had its moments. And so maybe a 5-12 year, Ian's right, 4-13. Holy crap. But it's more fun when they're good.
Oh, yeah.
It's more fun.
It's just a wild year to have the last place schedule, and you get to pull the Chargers and the Bengals out of that.
Are those the two teams you no.
No, you play that entire division.
Who's the other divisional team you get? Washington. Okay. Yeah. Washington sucks. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 again.
If you had to bet right now, he is going to be the quarterback of this franchise when they open the new stadium, or he is not, you have to bet one way or the other. Which way are you guys going?
Well, I'll give odds. How
No,
about?
no.
I'll give odds.
No, it's money line. You have to bet yes or no, period. No odds.
I give him a 60% chance of being.
No, you have to bet your house. Yes or no.
I don't bet my house.
Dude, don't do this. TD, will you please indulge my question? God, Kaharski. So
I mean, I'm straddling the fence with that one, but to give you some classroom participation, I will go ahead and I would say yes.
Thank you.
But not because I think he's going to be a top 5 passer. I would say yes because, nowadays, even if you're, top 10, top 15, like remember, this organization paid Ryan Tannehill $100 million. Right. So I think he's going to it's likely that he puts them in a situation where they're like, okay, we're looking like the Jacksonville Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence as far as like, I don't know that we're going to find something better. We could possibly, but I don't know that we're going to find something better. So let's go ahead and pay him. I think that's going to be the situation.
TD, good job for playing along, which Paul would not do when Joe asked that question. So I'm not going to lie to you guys. This past week, I was in the Bahamas, and I was pretty much pool, beach. They had a water park there. I mean, it's actually...
I love a good water park.
It was pretty dope. Like, it was, like a hamburger was like $25. But other than that, like, it was very fun, relaxing, entertaining. And so, I had indulged a little bit, was in a very relaxed state on the beach or at the pool. And I have hobbies just like you guys do. And so I was listening to the Robbie and Rex Road podcast pretty much every day. And I heard that where Joe asked TD that question, hey, if you guys had to bet on Levis, yes or no, would you bet? And when Paul was like, I don't do that, I was like, oh God, Paul, it's not just yes or no. Are you in? Are you out? And Paul said 60%, which I think was saying in, right? Like if we're doing in or out and you say 60%, that's in.
Yeah, lukewarmly in.
Okay. And TD said in, but just because like there's only 7 good quarterbacks out there and everybody gets paid as long as you're not terrible. And Levis isn't going to be terrible. So give him the Tua contract, give him the Justin Herbert, give him the Trevor Lawrence, give him the next guy deal. Remember when Derek Carr got paid by the Raiders? That Jared Goff, give him that. And I understand both those. But if I had to bet today, where I sit right now, yes or no, as much as I like Levis, and I like him, and I liked him coming out, I'd have to vote no. If I'm betting my house that Levis makes it as the franchise quarterback, and I agree with what TD said about how, hey man, this team paid Ryan Tannehill $30 million a year, and they did. And Tannehill for a 5-year period was your franchise quarterback. I'm still going to bet no. For starters, most quarterbacks to begin with that are drafted are busts. As much as we hype up Drake May and Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, there's a chance that they might end up being Daniel Jones. Secondly, as we talked about in the last segment, most second-round quarterbacks, with the exception of Jalen Hurts, most second-round quarterbacks are busts. And third, the Titans as an organization have so many questions. Questions on the offensive line. I'm still not sold their receivers are that good. Brian Callahan hasn't called a play in his life, and we don't even know who's running the team. Like, we don't know who's making decisions on who to draft, who to sign, who to trade. Is it the president of football operations, Chad Brinker? Is it the general manager, Rand Carr? I don't know. So we don't even know who's running the team. So there are so many questions out there that, again, you're asking me to bet my own money. I have to bet no. I have to bet against it. And I'm rooting for Levis. And I see the talent. But somebody asked me on the plane coming back They said to me, do you think Levis is the guy? And I said, I could see this going either way. He's got the talent to be a high-end franchise quarterback. But a lot of guys have talent. Jeff George had talent. Vince Young. But Vince. So I'm not being a hater, I promise. And when it comes to the chance that Levis has in front of him to go be the guy, not be the guy, he's absolutely earned the chance. I mean, the Eagles weren't even sold on Jalen Hurts. If you remember, the reason that they hired Nick Sirianni to be the head coach, who was at the time the quarterback's coach in Indianapolis, the reason that they hired Nick Sirianni was because they were trying to keep Carson Wentz. Then after 1 year of Jalen Hurts, when they got into the playoffs, they tried to get Russell Wilson. It wasn't until they made the trade for A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts blew up and they were in the Super Bowl that the Eagles were convinced they had something in Hurts. But Hurts earned the opportunity. This is not, with Levis, this is not like Bronny James, where this dude is just there because his dad's famous or because they're stupid, or Levis has earned the opportunity. This is not Zach Wilson with the Jets, where they knew very early he was a bum, but they had to put him out there because they drafted him second. This is not that. Levis has earned the opportunity. But to expect him to succeed to the point that I would bet my house on it one way or another, I can't go there. And even with TD's comparison to Trevor Lawrence, I think Levis has the potential to be better than Lawrence one day, because I think there's a ceiling with Lawrence and that I think he's pretty close to it. But Trevor Lawrence is a better quarterback than Will Levis. Like, it's right now, it's not even close. Where Trevor Lawrence is right now is not even remotely close to where Will Levis is right now. Not even close. So while I'm hoping he becomes better than Lawrence and better than Dak Prescott and better than Kirk Cousins and better than a lot of these quarterbacks out there that, I mean, do you really want Kirk Cousins to be your quarterback? While he can be better than him, I wouldn't bet my house on it. I just can't. I think expecting Levis to be the guy at this point is really just wishful thinking. And I'm not saying that PK and TD are up, because it wasn't like PK and TD came out and said, Levis is going to be a franchise superstar. They didn't say that. But they did say, hey, you know, there's a chance. And they were right about that. But again, if the question that is being asked there is, would you bet your house on it? I can't do that. I can't do that. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in here on the program. Byron says, the thing is, if Levis ends up being the guy, this franchise isn't known to be one that opens up the wallet to keep him around. Dude, the Cincinnati Bengals have the guy. They are the poorest franchise in the NFL, traditionally. They are the cheap asses of the NFL. They are the team that everybody laughs at and everybody makes fun of, and everybody, oh, the cheap Bengals don't even have an indoor practice facility. And their quarterback makes the most money out of anybody in the NFL. If you have the guy, you pay the guy. Burrow, Allen, Mahomes. If CJ Stroud continues on his path, whatever the top contract is, they'll get. And Levis is no different. And the Titans are no different. They'll pay it. More of your phones on this, 615-737-1025. Somebody asked into the text line, what are my hobbies? That is not what this is, but my hobbies are sports radio, blackjack, boating. Ian, I think I'm out.
That's good, though. I think most people don't have like tons of hobbies. You got to pick a couple. And...
I like the beach.
Yeah.
I was talking about this. Are you a beach person or a mountains person?
Beach or mountains?
Yeah, like some people like, oh, we went out and hiked in the mountains this summer.
I mean, if I had to choose, I do love going to Gatlinburg and doing like a cabin up there. But if I probably had to pick like a week, I'd probably choose the beach.
I'm a beach guy. Well, also, you've stayed at the best resort in the history of beach resorts. And so
I don't know about that, but
you didn't think that hotel in Jamaica was
history. I couldn't tell you that. I don't really do those resorts very often. So it's the only one I've been to.
Ian went to a resort like a year ago in Jamaica that I went to like 3 years ago. And when Ian told me that he was going, I loved that resort so much that I was so jealous.
It was nice. We enjoyed ourselves.
So jealous.
Yeah.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll get back to your phones at 615-737-1025 here on the program. And speaking of the Titans, and speaking of Levis, and speaking of the money, let me say this. I'm not sure Will Levis has the longest leash in the world to prove whether or not he's got it. And that's not necessarily his fault. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. Let's talk Twice Daily. That's right. I absolutely love Twice Daily. In fact, one thing that I like, I was considering a move to a new home at some point, and I got to make sure it's by a Twice Daily. And if I do move, that home will be right by a Twice Daily. I can promise you that. Twice Daily is fabulous. In fact, I think they named Twice Daily for me because I go there all the time. Twice Daily has the made-to-order kiosk, and you can download the app where you can order ahead of time and just go pick up those snacks, lunch items, dinner, breakfast. They have it all. The snacks are the real deal, made to order, and you can get a huge warm pretzel and dip, 3-piece chicken tenders, or spicy boneless wings. And again, you can order in store or like I do on the Twice Daily app. All fresh, tasty, and priced right for your budget. And since it's summer, do not forget to grab an ice cold drink too. Download the Twice Daily app and join their loyalty program to unlock special discount savings and so much more. If you're looking for convenience, Twice Daily has you covered. That's Twice Daily.
we got to fast track this thing. You won 22, and you have 3 years before we have to pay you. You know, you're 25 years old, and we need to find out if you can do it now. Rounded him with the individuals they did. Veteran guys that have been through some stuff in this league, that have played some winning football, that understands. You marry him with a first-year guy, or in Will's case, a second-year guy, but it's really a first-year guy. You try to maximize as much as you can, so you will know for sure heading into the next offseason, we don't need another quarterback, because it's not like he's 22, 23. He's been in the league 3 or 4 years by now. We're pushing up against that contract year where we may have to pay him a lot of money or not. You're 25 years old. I'm on your side. So we need to figure this out.
That was D-Mace talking about Will Levis saying, hey, man, we got to figure it out now. You're older. We're not getting umpteenth chances in order to figure it out. You know, how many years did Mariota get where it was just like, is Marcus the guy? Is Marcus not the guy? Ian, how many shows do you think we did over the years where we talked about whether or not Marcus was the guy?
A lot. I mean,
like 5 years worth of shows.
I wouldn't say 5 years, you know, after the first
2, he looked like the real deal.
So it's pretty good. So, you know, a couple seasons probably.
But I mean, after that, it was just like every day. And D-Mace is saying Levis will not get that kind of leeway, that runway.
It is interesting to think that Levis is the oldest quarterback in the division.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Holy crap. So I went to Titan's house today as a civilian. Titan's house is the kind of what they're calling their PSL ticket center. It actually is a pretty good idea. Basically, they rented out some office space in order to, you know, go over the new stadium. There's a giant model there. I already did the media tour of the Titans house, but today was the actual civilian trek with my dad as we discussed with the Titans our PSLs and things like that. And again, you know, the Titans put out there in their press release that 40% of the PSLs will be $3,500 in the stadium or less. The PSLs that they're selling right now are a lot more than that, roughly 10 times that. And so I went there today, and all I'll say is this. The money the Titans are asking right now for people to spend on PSLs, and all PSLs are, it's a one thing, and then you get the right to buy season tickets every year. So you buy a PSL, you're not actually buying the tickets. So let's say season tickets are, let's just give a round number, 5,000. And I think they are, but just use that number as 5,000, 2,000 a season, whatever. You got to buy this PSL, and then you still got to buy the tickets. And I've said many a time, I think PSLs are bullcrap, but that is how the NFL does business. And I'll just say, with the money that they are asking people to spend on PSLs, which will ultimately equal somewhere around $180 million. And given the fact that the NFL just lost like a, $17 billion lawsuit, they may end up asking for more money. I don't know. The Titans better hope Will Levis is the man, or else I guarantee you they will be in the Dak Prescott sweepstakes after the season. Dak Prescott does not have a contract right now in Dallas. I do not think Jerry wants to pay Dak top of the market money. I don't think Jerry wants to pay Dak $60 million a year. Dak cannot be tagged. So if Dak plays this year in Dallas and has a Dak-like season where he's leading the NFL in passing, he's like last year second in the league in MVP voting, and you know, Dak has a Dak-like season where he throws for a gazillion yards and touchdowns against the Giants and the Commanders, and then he goes out there in real games on Sunday Night Football and in the playoffs and doesn't win. If Dak has that kind of season and he's free agency, there will be a massive market for him, because there are teams right now that have quarterbacks like Daniel Jones that are like, okay, we're in. We don't have a quarterback. Dak is legitimately a quarterback, and so $60 million, let's talk. I absolutely think that's a possibility. And I think if Levis proves he's not the guy, to Derrick's point, he's got this year, and that's it. And then after that, I think they will absolutely be in the Dak Prescott sweepstakes or the next round of the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes or something like that. Because I think they're looking at their team. This is why I think the Titans spent a lot of money this offseason, though they did not spend as much money as we're giving them credit for. They are 16th right now in the L in total spend, which, again, after seeing those PSL prices, I like Adam Strong put a little bit more money into the top 10, past 16th. The Texans can apparently for everybody, but the Titans are 16th. That's a different decision. The fans to pay the kind of money you just can't do it. I mean, it's just simple business, and Amy knows that. So where they're sitting, they're like, all right, let's go get Levis a center. Let's go get Levis a coach. Let's go get Levis some receivers. Let's see what Levis has, because we want to pay him $300 million, like the Justin Herbert contract. They want to give Will Levis that money because then it makes it easier for them to ask their fans to give them their money. So after my trip to Titans house, all I'll say is, and I think the Titans, we had a sales rep that was there that was walking. Great guy, very smart, not pushy, knew what he was talking about, really enjoyed my experience with this guy today. But that being said, I mean, I was in there looking up at the board where they were going over the numbers, and I'm like, man, Will Levis better be the guy. Like, I'm looking at these, I'm like, man, these money they're asking everybody to pay, Will Levis better be the guy, because if he's not, then you need to go ahead and get into that Dak Prescott sweepstakes, because you're going to need somebody to get people to buy those tickets. Lenny texts into the text line and says, Will Levis will throw for the most yards of any quarterback in the NFL this year. I'll take the under.
Wow. Any quarterback?
I mean, I know
unless it's all garbage time, Blake Bortles style, but my goodness.
Jameis Winston. I know people don't want to hear this because I say this a lot. They don't have a right tackle. In all seriousness, how can you pay or how can you throw for the most yards in the NFL? You don't have a right tackle. Mike from PA says if they pick in the top 5 of next year's draft, the season will stink to watch, but the offseason should be fun. And I agree. But I push Eric Sanders or Carson Bell about Shedeur Sanders at Colorado, thinking that might buy him more time. Now, I don't know who's in charge of the Titans. It's funny. The Titans are having a press conference tomorrow, and the NFL requires that the top football operations person and the number 2 football operations person meet with the media, which is why in the past it was John Robinson and Ryan Cowden that would do this. Last year, it was Rand Carthon and I believe Chad Brinker that were doing that. Tomorrow, it will be Rand Carthon and Anthony Robinson. But Chad Brinker is the president of football operations. The Titans sent out a release about the training camp, the media training camp release, and they have the full bio for Rand Carthon, the full bio for Brian Callahan. But then when it has their organizational person structure, one on the list.
Who's that?
Brinker.
Interesting.
So here's what it says in the Titans media release. Titans player personnel. Number 1, Chad Brinker, president of football operations. Number 2, Rand Carthon, executive vice president / general manager. Number 3, Anthony Robinson, assistant general manager. Number 4, Brian Gardner, director of scouting. Number 5, Smith, director of scouting. Number 6, John Salgi, director of college scouting. Number 7, Rob Reiterer, assistant director of football strategy. And we can go on and on down the list. I mean, this sounds like this is a ranking, right? This isn't alphabetical
Some
order.
type of flow chart.
Yeah, this is not alphabetical order. This is number 1, number 2, number 3, Brinker's number 1. And I keep going back. His title is president. Rand's is vice president. There is no business, except apparently the Democratic nomination right now, where the vice president is ahead of the president. That does not exist. And so, again, you say that Rand wants to draft Shedeur Sanders. I don't even know that Rand's the one making that call. And I do think if they have a bad season and Brinker's really calling the shots, and I don't know who is calling the shots or who's not calling the shots. And he'll be the sacrificial lamb, and they'll say, well, we gave it a try, but Chad's going to be in charge now, when Chad might be in charge the whole time. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. While I was on vacation, I saw the stupidest Titans fan argument of all time. And when people say there's no stupid questions or there's no stupid opinions, I think if you're really a Titan fan, this is a stupid question or opinion. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company. So, when I'm on vacation, I usually try to pick the weeks where there's the least going on, which is why I was off. Then I was back for 2 weeks because we had a bunch of hockey stuff going on. And then I was off because, what was really going on then? But then there's a couple of stories that happened and, we got to get to them and we got to discuss them. So I don't know where this came from. I told you guys that I was on the beach and I was listening to Robbie and Rexroad the whole time I was on the beach. And I'm not going to break up my morning routine. I'm working out. I'm listening to Robbie and Rexroad. I'm on the beach. I'm relaxing. I want to hear talk about the Titans. I'm listening to Robbie and Rexroad. Just what I do. And so on Friday on the Robbie and Rexroad program, there was this big discussion that then made its way over to Twitter. Or I don't know if it's, Ian, do you know if this started on Twitter and made its way to the program, or if this started on the program and made its way to Twitter?
I want to say it started on the program and made its way to Twitter.
So this discussion was about rooting for Derrick Henry. And I am a big Derrick Henry fan. I wanted the Titans to keep Derrick Henry because I think that it helps the young quarterback to have a Derrick Henry. But apparently the discussion is there are people out there that are rooting for the Ravens because they are rooting for Derrick Henry. And PK went crazy, both on the show and on Twitter. Kaharski went nuts about basically, you are not a Titan fan if you are rooting for Derrick Henry. You're not a Titan fan if you're rooting for the Ravens. And Joe pushed back because Joe does not know, and I love Joe, and he's very knowledgeable about the things that he does know, but Joe does not know one scintilla of information about anything that happened before he showed up here. Now, Robbie can carry him in that regard because Robbie knows everything about the Preds. He knows everything about the Vols. He knows everything about the Titans. So Joe doesn't get exposed like that. But Joe does not know about anything that happened before the day that he showed up in Nashville 7 years ago or however long ago it was. And that's fine. But it just is what it is. So Joe was pushing back. And he was saying people can root for their favorite players. And I'm here to tell you right now, if you are a true Tennessee Titan fan, you cannot root for the Ravens. In fact, I would argue outside of the Colts, the Ravens are the Titans' biggest rivals. As a Titan fan, the Ravens have caused the most pain that I have ever felt as a Titan fan on several different occasions. And just because they're not in the same division anymore doesn't mean that you don't have to hate them still. Because some way, somehow, it feels like the Ravens that are there to spoil the Titans' biggest opportunities. And so when it comes to rooting for the Ravens, I can't speak about everybody else. But when I watched the AFC Championship game last year, I was rooting for the Chiefs because I hate the Ravens. Well, but Jared, I can't root for Derrick Henry because I love Derrick Henry. Let me say this. The Ravens quarterback is the greatest player in the history of my university, and that includes Johnny Unitas. Lamar Jackson is the greatest player that the University of Louisville has ever had at football. And I root against the Ravens. And everybody that I talk to at Louisville that knows Lamar and knows him well says he is just the best guy. When we were going to the Titans house, I was talking to my dad about this. And I said, okay, Ravens or Chiefs, who would you root for? He goes, Chiefs. I go, Ravens or Bills? Bills. Ravens or Bengals? Bengals. The one that got iffy with us was the Texans. And even then, I think I might root for the Texans over the Ravens. That's how much I hate the Ravens. I told Brian Billick at the Super Bowl. You know, I saw Brian Billick walking around maybe Tuesday or Wednesday of Super Bowl week, and I texted Caroline, and I said, we got a surprise for D-Makes. I told Brian Billick, I said, hey, we got Derrick on our midday show right now out in Nashville. And so we surprised Derrick, and Brian Billick was on, and, you know, his former coach. And I was just shooting the breeze with Brian Billick. And I told Brian Billick, I said, you and your team caused the first true heartbreak in my life at 11 years old when they beat the Titans in 2000. Then the Titans were the 1 seed. They beat them again. All the other Titans losses over the years, Like, I didn't hate the Rams because they beat them in the Super Bowl by a yard. The Titans blew that game in the first half. I'm not mad at the Bengals for what happened a couple of years ago. Tannehill threw 3 picks. That's not Cincinnati's. There's nothing. The Ravens are it's always something with them. And I think what made them even more hateable was that it was always Ray Lewis who was at the front of it, who was involved in a double murder. And so it was always, I remember there was a Monday Night Football game where Steve McNair snuck in a touchdown in order to win the game. And they called it back because Ray Lewis was offside and touched somebody, so they had to go for it again, and they didn't get it. I remember the excitement and the joy when the Titans went to Baltimore and beat them in 2003 in the playoffs. And I remember when Baltimore had their dream season, again, in 2000, that's the best Titans team there ever was. They lost 4 times that year, twice to the Ravens at Nissan Stadium, where they had never lost before. And when they lost that game, when Ray Lewis ran that touchdown back in, I turned to my dad and I said to him, and again, I'm an 11-year-old fan, I said, Dad, are we going to lose? And he looked at me and he said, yes. And that has stuck with me forever. So when the Titans were beating the ever-living crap out of the Ravens in the 2019 playoffs, that was their dream season. Number 1, Lamar's unanimous MVP, and the Titans go in there and just stick a foot up their rear ends. I looked at my dad with 5 minutes left. I said, Dad, are we going to win? And he said one of his friends called him because I had told that story on the radio that week. And he said that one of them, one of his friends had told him that I had told the story. And he said, yeah, so I heard that story. He goes, I'm not going to say we're going to win, but it's feeling good. And then the next year, the Ravens come in, beat you, and stomp on the logo. Screw the Ravens. I hate the Ravens. I love Derrick Henry. I'm not rooting for him. I mean, I'm sorry. But if somebody you knew, take somebody that's your friend. We live in such a polarized society. Let's say you're a Republican or you're a Democrat. And one of your friends says, I'm running for president, but I'm running on the other side. You going to vote for him? No. Derrick Henry is on the other team, and he is on the rival. And rivalries are a real thing. You can like somebody and be an Ohio State guy, and he's an Ohio State guy. Well, he's coaching Michigan now. You're going to root for him? No. What are we talking about? No. You do not root for your rival to win, and the Ravens are the Titans' biggest rivals if you are a true Titans fan. And so I don't give a rat's ass about Derrick Henry winning a ring. Do not care one iota. I care about the Ravens losing because I hate the Ravens, I hate their fans, and I will always hate the Ravens, and I will always hate their fans. So I'm with Paul on this. To me, it is sacrilegious to root for the Ravens to win if you are a Titan fan. Adam in Portland is up next here on the program. Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, you're right, dude. Like, you got me fired up. I forgot what I was going to talk about. I hate Baltimore so much. Every bit of them, like, to my core. The way you are with Baltimore, I was the exact same way. We're only like 3 years apart. But that game, even where he snuck it and he was a yard short, Ray Lewis was in the media. I don't remember the play as much as I remember Ray Lewis's press conference. And he was like, well, Bruce Matthews set the ball up. Like, they always got something to say, dude. Like, I hate him so much. It makes me sad because I do love Derrick Henry. He is my favorite player that we've ever had. But I agree with you 100%. I cannot root for that guy ever again. So.
Well, I mean, I hope good things happen for Derrick, but I just don't think you, Adam. I just hope they don't happen with the Ravens. I'm telling you what it is. And people are like, well, McNair went to the Ravens and Mason went to the Ravens and Samari Rolle went to the Ravens. And yeah, and I was rooting against them too. I mean, I was rooting against them. Poor D Mace, I love him with all my heart, but I was rooting against him. I remember when D Mace caught the touchdown over Cortland Finnegan in the playoffs in the game in which they twisted Chris Johnson's ankle. I remember that game and I don't like it. So I'm sorry, you cannot root for the Ravens. If you are really a Titan fan, you cannot root for the Ravens. You cannot be this is not Vanderbilt in Tennessee, where Vanderbilt fans hate Tennessee. I don't know exactly how Tennessee fans feel about Vanderbilt. I think they're insecure if Vanderbilt is better than them at something. But I hear all these, well, I mean, I'm a UT fan, but I root for Vanderbilt when they're not playing UT. You cannot do that if you are if you're a true Titan fan. Though I did like Derrick Henry's tweet. Did you see it?
No.
Derrick Henry quote tweeted Kaharski and said, Paul, go find something to do. I did laugh about that. I did think that was kind of funny.
It's off season. You know, what else are we going to do?
But I'm sorry. No, I'm not rooting for I didn't root for McNair, and I love McNair. And that's another thing I want to talk about for a second. Robbie and Joe today were talking about how Derrick Henry was more beloved than Steve McNair. He was not. Steve McNair is the clear choice in terms of who is the most popular Titan of all time. I think Derrick is the best. I think Steve is the most popular. And what I will tell you is that when Eddie was rolling, Eddie was the most popular guy, but then there was the transition period to McNair, and McNair represented the city, it felt like, when McNair was the quarterback. And I turned to my dad this morning after I heard Robbie and Joe arguing or talking about, who the most popular, like Joe has any clue when he didn't live here. And he was talking about, Henry might be the most beloved. I heard people say that McNair was, when they were the Oilers. But once this thing got rolling, everybody loved McNair. And so I said to my dad, who was not listening to Robbie and Rexroad, I said to him before we went to the Titans house, I said, who do you like the most? McNair, George, or Henry? And he looks at me and just goes, oh, Steve. And my dad, when we used to get our haircuts at the Bellevue Mall, there was a store called Hex. It was a department store.
Yeah.
We used to get our haircuts there at Hex. And they were like the official retailer of the Titans. So you could buy like jerseys and hats and whatever, like when they became the Titans. And they had every player's jersey there. They even had, and I love him, but he wasn't like, number 1, number 2, they had Chris Sanders jerseys there. Wish I had bought one. I love Chris. But my dad said to me when we got our haircuts, and I wasn't even a big football fan at the time because the Titans hadn't played a game as the Titans yet, and they had the McNair jerseys out there. And he said to me, he goes, they better get those O'Donnell jerseys ready. Ha, ha, ha. And now my dad's like, no. I am not rooting. Number 1, McNair. Brad, quickly on all of this. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, 100% on the Ravens. Couldn't root for him for anything. The way I see it, though, if Derrick Henry had a 2,000-yard season and the Ravens went 0-16, that would be perfect. And then one quick thing on McNair, he absolutely was the most beloved Titan there ever was. I think the reason is because he started off with a lot of adversity, and he really went to work and won over the fan base over a long period of time, and everyone really remembers him for that.
Well, I think thank you, Brad. I think the reason why McNair is number 1 loved is because he was the quarterback and he won the MVP.
They were winning. Yeah.
And not only that, McNair at the end of the game, he was magical. Like it was, if you got the ball with 2 minutes and a timeout, you knew Steve. They played a game against the Colts in which the division was on the line and they had fumbled a couple of punts. And so Steve had to bring him back, and he did. This was the year that he and Manning were the co-MVPs. And so they fumble a couple of kickoffs, and Manning scores, and Steve brings them back. And so the defense gets a stop, and they're punting to the Titans, and the game's, and every person, I knew Steve was going to bring them down, and they were going to win the game because that's what Steve McNair did. And Justin McCarron's fumbled the punt. If McCarron's had just fair caught the punt, they would have won the game, won the division, maybe even won the Super Bowl that year. Because you knew Steve was going to do it. That's just the way he was. 615-737-1025. Training camp starts tomorrow. We hear from the coach. We hear from the GM. And I've got 5 things that actually matter. Not the, we're excited to work hard, but the things that we will learn tomorrow that matter. We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Football tomorrow. Training camp starts. Now, practice does not start until Wednesday, but training camp starts tomorrow. And what does that matter? Because some people say, well, we care about the practice. We don't care about this. We don't care about. Trust me on this. You care about tomorrow. Now, what they're going to talk about in the press conferences, Brian Callahan, I believe, is at 12:15, and Rand Carthon and Anthony Robinson are at 12:45. What they're going to talk about, you're going to hear a lot of questions about. So what does Will Levis need to do in order to be able to grow this year and, do that does not matter. To me, there are actual questions that matter. And then again, there's your typical, how excited are you to see the 3 receivers? Oh yeah, we're really excited. We're going to work really hard. We're going to, that stuff. All that we'll figure out later. This is the stuff that matters. So here's how I view it. I think there are 5 things that we will probably learn tomorrow that have serious implications for the football team. And we start at what I care about the most or what I think is the most important or whatever. We start with kind of what we're going to learn tomorrow about the Titans.
Number 1.
Will T'Vondre Sweat pass the conditioning test? I assume that the conditioning test will be conducted in the morning, probably around 8 or 9 a.m. Brian Callahan talks at 12:15. If T'Vondre Sweat does not pass the conditioning test, if T'Vondre Sweat is not ready to play on the first day of practice, if T'Vondre Sweat ends up on an NFI, non-football injury or whatever it is, I don't know exactly where they put you if you don't pass the conditioning test, but if he does not pass the conditioning test or he is too fat to play or he is injured once again or whatever, we're going to have problems. Now, I have no idea if he will or if he won't pass the conditioning test. I have no idea if when he steps on the scale tomorrow, if it's going to be an acceptable number for the Titans. But with Sweat, the number one question was always, can he actually make the most out of the talent that he has? And can he really make football a priority? He told all the teams that he was going to make football a priority, and then he got a DWI 2 weeks before the draft. They stuck their neck out for him. We'll see. Wasn't ready for OTAs. We'll see if he's ready for training camp. And again, I expect the conditioning test to be completed in the morning. So if Sweat's ready to practice on Wednesday, then Brian Callahan will tell you on Tuesday.
Number 2.
Is Nicholas Petit-Ferrer ready to compete for right tackle? Because he's gotten every free pass in the book, it feels like. The gambling suspension, that was so stupid. That, to me, was a mark that made me think I cannot rely on this guy. I need to get somebody else who can be reliable. He was terrible last season. At right tackle, he was terrible at left tackle. Well, Jared, he didn't play a lot because of the gambling suspension. I know. That's a bad thing. Jermaine Illuminor was out there in free agency. I don't know if you've seen the Giants' Hard Knocks or not.
No, not yet.
But they really, now the Giants are stupid, so maybe this, doesn't bode well for my Jermaine Illuminor take. But they really wanted Jermaine Illuminor on that team. And they said, worst case scenario, he's the left guard or he's the right tackle. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God.
Don't tell Fitzy.
Oh my God. And so they've given him every free pass in the book. And he was not available for OTAs because he was hurt again. So is he actually ready to compete for the right tackle? Or is he going to go on the PUP list? Is he going to go on NFI? Is he going to, not be available to start the season again?
Number 3.
Are they done at safety after Jamal Adams, or are they still in the running for Justin Simmons? Now, they may not answer that. They may say something like, well, we're looking at every position, which would suck if they said that. But there's a chance they're probably going to say, if they really are done with Jamal Adams at safety, that said, no, we feel good about it. We feel good about Amani and Elijah and Jamal, and so we feel good at safety. Lord, I hope they don't. Jamal Adams never plays, and Jamal Adams stinks. So I hope they're still in the running for Justin Simmons. And I don't know if they are, and if Charles Robinson who went on Robbie and Rex Road last week and said that the Texans are still in the mix for Justin Simmons? How are the Texans still in the mix for Justin Simmons?
They're in the mix for everybody.
How? Isn't there a salary cap?
Yeah.
So shouldn't they have spent enough money? I mean, they went through free agency, spent all that money on Aziz and Danico and Daniil Hunter and all those guys they added. And then they added Stephon Diggs, and now they're going to add Justin Simmons?
Maybe.
They must use a different cap than the Titans do.
Maybe. But Simmons is going to be cheap anyways.
I don't know, man. Plus, the cap's bullcrap, but, it is what it is. But again, are they done with Jamal Adams? If they're done with Jamal Adams, we're going to have problems. If not, okay, fine, whatever.
Number 4.
Where's Chad Brinker? So, again, the NFL makes you put out the number 1 guy and the number 2 guy. And the Titans are putting out Ran Carthon and they're putting out Anthony Robinson. But Chad Brinker is the president of football operations. And you can't say, yeah, Chad just handles the extra stuff. Chad just worries about the field turf and worries about the IT and worries about the PR department and worries about, the underwear washing and the cleaning out ashtrays and stuff like that. When he's the guy going to the Senior Bowl and he is a part of scouting and he is part of the discussion of hiring a coach and if he's not number 1, he's definitely number 2, right? So who is number 1 and who is number 2? I would like to know the answer to that. So I kind of wonder about that.
Number 5.
And are they considering resigning DeAndre Hopkins before the start of the season? Because this is the time of year where you start to get these deals done. And if you don't get these deals done this time of the year and you go into the season, then you're probably going to lose those players in free agency for next year. And I know DeAndre's 32. But last year I asked the Titans before the start of the season, I said, are you talking to any of your potential free agents about a deal? And Rand said no. And the guy I was asking that about was not Henry. It was Autry. And I think what happened with Autry is a problem for this team. 11 and a half sacks, just walked out the door, and they're trying to replace it with what we'll see tomorrow, whether or not he's in shape, with T'Vondre Sweat. So are they interested in re-signing DeAndre to an extension? Or are they fine with DeAndre at 32, having another good year and then hitting the market? All the other stuff that we're going to work hard, we're going to be competitive, nobody's going to outwork us, blah, blah, blah. That's just talk. Those things matter. Did Sweat pass the conditioning test? Is PT ready to play? Are you still in the mix for another safety? Who's running the team? And are you going to re-sign DeAndre? 615-737-1025. Add that to the list. We will get to your phones. And speaking of DeAndre, I've thought about this, over the offseason about, would you give DeAndre a contract or not? I'm not sure. What do you think? Well, I have thought more about it. And I have made a decision. Because if I'm the Titans, you got to make a decision if you can sit down with DeAndre. I've made a decision as to what they should do. Or what I would do if I was in charge. We'll do it next. First, though, we will talk about Window Nation. And we will talk about how much I love Window Nation. Because Window Nation is the best. And Window Nation, absolutely, if you are looking to redo your windows, there is nowhere that you would trust, that I would trust for you more than Window Nation. In fact, I had Window Nation out to my home, and they said I had good windows. I didn't need to replace them, and that told me that they were an honest company. If you've got old, like the single pane windows that are inefficient, that means you're going to be cranking your AC up in this kind of heat, which means high utility bills all year long. So get with Window Nation, which again is the #1 company according to Forbes' list of best window installation companies. Because right now, for every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 windows for free. Plus, 0 down, no interest or payments for 2 years. So stop paying more than you have to and get 2 windows free when you buy 2 windows. That's for every 2 windows. And again, 0 down, no interest or payments for 2 years. Call 866-90NATION to schedule that in-home estimate or visit windownation.com. Again, 866-90NATION, windownation.com.
But you also have to say, as a GM to the owner, and I've said it on a couple of occasions, once they get to free agency, once we go beyond the start of the season, you have to assume he's leaving. Or you're going to tag him one way or the other. Simple as that.
That was Bill Polian, the Hall of Fame general manager on SiriusXM NFL Radio. I love when we say something that people don't like, and they're like, former general manager. And I'm like, you guys listen to the Jared and the GM program? I heard Kaharski saying that last week when Kaharski was like, I mean, he cares about what former general managers say. I'm like, yes, because I did radio with Floyd and I've been in the media with you. And trust me, I know whose opinion I care about more. It's like bagging on Rick Spielman. Oh, yes, the guy that drafted Justin Jefferson.
Spielman was the GM for the Vikings for, I didn't realize, so long.
Spielman was really good.
2006 to like 2021 or 2022 or something like that. That's a long time to be a GM of one team.
Spielman was pretty good. And those Vikings teams, for the most part, were pretty solid. Not everybody's going to win every year, but he was a good general manager, and he's a good man. So, you heard right there, Polian says, if they get to free agency, they're gone, unless you tag him. And you're not going to tag DeAndre Hopkins, because if you tag DeAndre Hopkins, it's going to be $30 million. So you're not going to tag him. So I've been thinking about this. What do you do with DeAndre Hopkins? I believe the Titans should be working on a contract extension for DeAndre. And here's why. Now, this was not something where I was like, they need to sign DeAndre to an extension. I was just thinking about it in my head and saying, the season hasn't started yet. Training camp starts tomorrow. If I were the Titans, I would go to DeAndre and say, hey, we want to work something out to keep you here for the future. We're going to call whoever the hell his agent is. We're going to call Johnny, and we're going to start those talks if you're interested. That's what I would do. And here's why I think they should do it. Number one, the Titans can give DeAndre more money this season, assuming that there is more money for them to spend, and considering that they're 16th, according to overthecap.com, in cash spending, and they just asked me for a boatload of money in PSLs, I think they've got some money. So they can give DeAndre more money this year, and then can give him a deal for next year that's not going to be a break the banker. And I can see DeAndre saying, well, I'm set to make 13, but they're offering me a deal and I can make 16 this year instead of 13. And I get some guaranteed money next year, but it's not so much money that you can't get out of it if it doesn't work. If DeAndre's an old pawpaw, you can get out of it. But what I don't want is I don't want Levis and DeAndre. And it felt like they had good chemistry last year. And it felt like Levis really looks up to DeAndre. And I do not want Levis to continue to build this great chemistry with DeAndre Hopkins. And then all of a sudden, Hopkins has another solid season and boom, DeAndre's gone. Just like Danico Autry. Again, I asked the Titans before the start of the season, I said, are you talking to your free agents about a deal? And they said no. And I'm like, are you sure you don't want to re-sign Danico? Because Danico got 11 a year. Danico was making 7. Danico got 11. If you had offered Danico an extension for 9, he probably takes it. And now those 11.5 sacks are back, and you don't have to draft the D lineman in the second round of the draft. And they said they wanted to bring Danico and Azeez back. But they got to free agency, and it's like Polian says, if they get to free agency, they're not coming back. Now, some people will say DeAndre is too old. I looked it up this morning. DeAndre will be 32 years old this season. He turned 32 last month. Derrick Mason on our midday show had 404 receptions and 4,874 yards after he turned 32 years old. Why? Because D-Mace's game was not speed, athleticism, jumping. I mean, he was fast. He could move, but he was a tactician. That's DeAndre's game. That's the difference between DeAndre and Julio Jones. I begged, do not get Julio Jones. And I begged last year, go get DeAndre Hopkins. And I did that because I knew the difference. Julio's game was based on explosion, running past you, jumping over you. Those things go as you get older. DeAndre is the expert at getting open, at being able to butter his way to the ball. Like, he is different. He's not a speed guy. He's not an athletic guy. He is a contact and combat catcher. And like D-Mace, DeAndre takes care of himself. So I'm not really worried about DeAndre falling off a cliff at 32 years old. Now, is it possible that DeAndre turns into an old papa? Sure, it's possible. But I'm taking the risk of a couple extra million this year and some guaranteed money next year to get DeAndre under contract for next season so that he doesn't just record another 1,000-yard season and score another 7 touchdowns and then watch him go to the Colts next March. The same way Danico took his 11.5 sacks on his way to Houston. I'd be talking to DeAndre right now, and I'd say, we want to do a deal. That's what I would do. And I've thought about it. I understand 32 is not 26. I got it. But I'm trying to build the quarterback up, and you don't just do that in 1 year. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter says, if Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT,
if PT isn't ready to compete for right tackle, where would that mean the 2020 Titans draft falls in the history of worst Titans drafts? Just an awful draft all around. You know what's funny is that after that draft was over, ESPN, or not after the draft was over, but after the first season, ESPN's analytics department. So this is not, some bozo just sitting there and, writing down everything or whatever. It's not some bozo. This is, again, the analytics, the geeks, the nerds, the ones you guys love. They said the Titans had the 4th most productive rookie draft class from the 2022 class. Roger McCreary, I think, is the best player on the team that nobody talks about. Like, when we're talking about good players, how many good players are there? Cushenberry is good. Not we think Skoronski will be good. I'm talking about good. Cushenberry's good. Snead's good. Simmons is good. I mean, how many guys are, and I think McCreary is good, and nobody talks about it. So I'm not completely ready to throw that draft class under the bus. But what's really dragging it down is A.J. Brown for Treylon Burks. That's what's dragging it down. That's the difference. 615-737-1025. Ian, what is every Titans fan's guilty pleasure topic? They'll never say that they love talking about this. In fact, they'll say they don't want to talk about this, but it explodes every single time we talk about it.
Where are you going with this one?
You don't know the guilty pleasure? The one that we start talking about and text lines, phone lines just explode. Everybody's got to take.
Rand Carthon?
You're close, but they don't have a problem admitting to talking about that.
They just like talking about how you don't like them.
The guilty pleasure is one Michael Richard Vrabel.
Aha, I see.
You know why his middle name's Richard?
Yes, I do.
Because his friends call him Dick. Mike Vrabel. And Mike Vrabel did an hour-long podcast, and he had 2 doozies in there that we have got to get to. We've got to get to. And by the way, you can tell that he told the Pardon My Take guys, hey, man, I don't want to hash out too much Titan stuff. Because they didn't ask, like, why'd you get fired? What do you think about the owner? They didn't ask that. But there were 2 things in there that Vrabel went down that road that got me all worked up. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Mike, you made a comment during all that that's kind of getting parsed here, talking about
who's parsing it, Gentry? Well, then ask the question, Jared.
What question? When you said that other organizations don't do things as well as the Patriots, and that because you've been there, were you referring to this organization?
They've won 6 Super Bowls. They won 6 Super Bowls in 20 years. That's what I was alluding to. You know what I mean? I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's just extremely, a lot of success. And, and I guess just probably having talked to, Bill and, Mr. Kraft and the coaches I know they're on staff. I guess that was just my way of, bringing them good luck on Sunday. No, I mean, just the amount of success that they had there, that was the whole message was just for myself and the former players and everything, just to not take things for granted. Just the because I got traded myself and went to a team that went 6-10, and it was like where you're just trying to find ways to win other than knowing that you're going to win when you show up. It was my whole intent of saying that they've had it pretty good there for 20 years, 6 Super Bowls and however many else they went to. That was it, Jared. So appreciate you. You'll never think like me, Jared. We're nothing alike. So I'm not. I'm the dumbest person in here. I promise you. I guarantee you I'm the dumbest person in here. But we will never think alike in anything that we do. So if you ever want to think how I'm thinking, just think the opposite. think like a dude, think like an athlete, think like a grown man, and then you'll think how I'm thinking.
On a lighter note,
That wasn't light enough for you?
Michael Richard Vrabel. Those are good memories, man. I was talking about something else with Vrabel that is actually a part of this discussion. I was talking about that with my dad like a week ago. And I was like, and Vrabel thought this. And I said, and one of us has a job right now and the other one doesn't. And then Caroline, I'm not actually, you know what? I'm not going to say the second part of what I was about to say. But those, we remember the New England comments, right? The Patriots fans enjoy it. It's not like this everywhere. Trust me, I know. You know it's not like that. How do you know? You talking about the Titans? And of course, Vrabel got mad at me, and that's what he said. But then Joe Rexrode wrote in The Athletic that one of the things that pissed Amy off that led to him getting fired was that he did not go to her and explain to her, like, hey, what I meant was, that I really appreciated being a Patriot and that the Patriots fans should appreciate it. And when I'm saying it's not like this other places, I mean, like when I travel to other buildings, it's not like that. All he had to do was explain himself. And I think there's a chance he might be the coach. Now, Joe's like, he didn't mean anything by that. But I guess it doesn't really matter if you meant anything by it. It matters if the person who's in charge thought you meant something by it. So Mike Vrabel went to the Celebrity Tahoe Golf Classic or whatever, and he sat down with the guys from Pardon My Take for an hour, and they hit on a bunch of different topics, including that. And here's what Vrabel had to say that left me wondering, why didn't he just say this at the time?
So you obviously still have, close ties with the Patriots, always will. Was there any part of the Ring of Honor ceremony that maybe rubbed the Titans the wrong way, where it's like, does he love them more than he loves us?
Pause that.
I certainly hope not.
When he says you're talking to the wrong person, you know exactly. Do you know what he means by that?
You have to ask the Titans.
You got to ask. Clearly, Amy was pissed about it, and so you need to talk to her about it, but I ain't mean anything by it. Continue.
Was there any part of the Ring of Honor ceremony that maybe rubbed the Titans the wrong way, where it's like, does he love them more than he loves us?
I certainly hope not. I certainly hope not. When there was going to be some uniqueness to this. I don't know. I can't think off the top of my head. I'm sure there's coaches that did something, but not currently where I went back. It was the bye week and everything was structured. It was hopeful that, our bye week in Tennessee was Patriots home game. And it was, and it did, and it worked out. And as soon as it came out, you call the owner, you call the team president, because you can kind of see like, this is how it's going to be. It's going to be a big deal. You know what I mean? It's like, I played there. You're going back there. You're going to put a red jacket on. You're going to stand with Mr. Kraft for 4 hours. There's going to be you're going to sit in the box next to him, and you're going to watch the game, and you're going to have a conversation, and all these things are going to be caught on television.
Right.
But like, that didn't affect my desire to be in Tennessee.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, that's how it goes. Like, you go back there, and it was amazing. And the conversation that I had with the fans was, don't be frustrated about this season. Like, look up there and look and see, like, when teams come in, like, they stare at those banners. Like, I remember going back there in 2020 in the 19 season and telling the players, like, you're going to see those banners. And those aren't, you don't get caught looking at the pinstripes, boys. Like, those things are amazing and what they've done. And yeah, they were 19-3 in the month of January in the playoffs. Like, it's going to be a tall task, but we're up for it. And I'm going to tell you how we're going to win.
Mm-hmm.
But also, a lot of teams go in there and they stare at those banners. And I wanted to explain that to the fans. Like, it's not like you don't walk in NFL stadiums and see the entire end zone, like with AFC Central Division champion banners. Like, these are Super Bowl banners. These are Lombardi trophies. These aren't like division banners.
Why did he not just say that at the time?
Is that not what was, I'm not coming up with the word, but inferred.
You're saying that he's saying that same thing. That response to me was exactly the same as what he said there.
I mean, it wasn't exactly the same because he didn't word it the same.
But you're saying that it was the same.
Yeah.
That Vrabel, when he said they've won 6 Super Bowls there, Jared. So I actually agree with you that to a certain extent that there was some overlap. But the entire tone changes everything. The tone from when he answered the question for me was basically just like, and again, I think this has more to do with me than it does with anything else.
Maybe.
But it is pouty Vrabel just putting his arms like, F you, Jared. Screw you and your bull crap.
Well, and
I said they won 6 Super Bowls. That's what I was saying. Whereas there, he was like, I hope nobody took it the wrong way, because when they're going to show me wearing the red jacket and talking about the good times and being with the owner and everything, that's what's going to happen. But it doesn't, the line he had in there, it doesn't change my desire to be a Titan. If Mike Vrabel had taken the exact same tone that day in October, I think he might still be the coach. I really think that the way it was told to me was that, and I don't know if this is true or not, but Amy was not necessarily as mad about the Patriot comments as she was about the fact that Vrabel did not go to her, the owner, and say, hey, just so you know, like, that wasn't about you guys. That wasn't, I love being the Titans coach. I love being your coach. It had nothing to do with that. And, blah, blah, blah. But because Vrabel had to be such a freaking, I hate to say it, penis head about the whole situation, it's like that rubbed the owner the wrong way. And again, what I'll say, I like Vrabel. I highly doubt Vrabel likes me, but that's his business. I like Vrabel. My message to him would be, Mike, why didn't you just say what you said there? Why didn't you just say that day? Because even though some of the words were the same, the meaning of what he said, the way that people are going to interpret what he said on what he said that day in October compared to what he said last week, that's not going to be the same. And I heard that and I'm like, Mike, that is a totally acceptable response. What's not acceptable is to stare off into space and riff about the 6 Super Bowls and then say, Jared, you will never, ever think like me. Now, I'm going to be honest. I think the reason I go back to this, I think the reason that Vrabel got mad at me that day had nothing to do with those Patriot comments. If you'll remember, the day before they traded Kevin Byard. And I went crazy. And I said at the time, I said, there's something that I know that's going on that you guys don't know. And I find this decision to trade Byard for these bag of footballs to be as despicable as what happened with Steve McNair at the end when they locked him out of the building. And I said that, and I believed it, and I stand by it. And again, this is none of my business, but I think now some people know what I was talking about when I was talking about it. And I believe that Vrabel knew at the time what I was talking about, what I was mad at the organization about when it came to Byard. And so I think what Vrabel did was Vrabel tried to, make that story about me doing that whole be a man, Jared, or think like a man or whatever. I think that's what he did because he was mad at me about the way that I was mad about the Byard trade. That's what I believe. And I could be wrong, but I'm just saying. It just happened to be the next day. But if Vrabel had said what he said to Pardon My Take, if he said that to Amy, I really think might still be the coach. And even though Mike Vrabel can't hire assistant coaches, especially offensive line coaches, Vrabel made a comment on Pardon My Take. They asked him if he'd ever get into the media, and he said he doesn't want to yet because once you cross to the dark side, then as he put it, those guys in the media, they've never missed a tackle. They've never dropped a pass. They've never this. They've never that. And I'm thinking to myself, you never got up there as coach outside of one mistake in the Atlanta Falcon game in 2019. You've never got up there and actually meant it that you screwed up as coach. Never once. How many times he get up there and say, play better, coach better? And it sounded rehearsed and it didn't sound genuine, just like the difference in tone between the two Vrabel comments there about the New England thing with me and the New England thing with Pardon My Take. So use this as a learning experience, Mike.
You don't think Vrabel said that kind of stuff to ownership behind closed doors?
About the New England thing?
Yeah.
I was told that he did not. In fact, not only was I told he did not, that was what was written in The Athletic. That the owner, again, wasn't necessarily mad about the comments, but she was mad about the fact that Vrabel didn't clear the air with her. I mean, I hate to say this, but I think Vrabel thought that he was kind of above all the gossip and drama that really stemmed from this show. Like when Fitz came on the show that one day and said that the coaches were mad at Rand Carthon about the Will Levis starting thing. I mean, that thing freaking blew up. I think Vrabel thought that he was above that and didn't need to address the rumors. And it's like, dude, the owner hears what's going on. You have to address those things.
Yeah, I'm not trying to throw Gentry it's just under the bus or anything, but when someone from the media starts to question about, hey, we're parsing some of your comments, that kind of just throws Vrabel for a loop automatically.
Yeah.
He does not enjoy the parsing.
If all of your friends and their wives are parsing your actions, chances are you probably need to explain to your wife what went down. I'm just saying. That's just, and to your point, you're right. Well, I still think Vrabel was mad at me about the Byard thing and then took it out on me on the New England thing. The second thing that got my blood boiling, again, I think he told the Pardon My Take guys, I don't want to talk about the Titans. I don't want to talk about anything controversial. I don't want to. Plus, between the fact that he and Robinson really haven't said anything since they've been basically paying out a bunch of money with an NDA. But I don't know that. I'm just, my opinion. This was the one that got me just freaking fired up. So, as it is well documented, Vrabel and I disagreed about his position on the special teams coordinator, Craig Aukerman. And in the end, I was right and Vrabel was wrong. But Vrabel, people said when it came to field goal kicking, people said, well, that has nothing to do with the coach. And I said, I don't believe that. I believe that a coach matters when it comes to kicking. Because Floyd told me the story that when he was coaching special teams in Minnesota, Jan Stenerud, who's in the Hall of Fame as a kicker, invited him, the snapper, and the holder over to his house for dinner. And Floyd thought, man, That is really, really nice of Jan Stenerud to do that. And he said before dinner was served, he was going over in the living room exactly how he wanted the snapper to snap it, exactly how he wanted the holder to hold it, and exactly how he wanted Floyd to coach it. And I'm like, that's what happens with the best. So Vrabel was asked about the kickers over the years under his watch on the Pardon My Take podcast. Here's what he said.
Do you still hate kickers? Because I think for a time period, you did hate kickers, right?
I mean, I don't know how many we've gone through, but there should be a game. Have you kicked for the Tennessee Titans from 2008 to 2022? And I wouldn't be able to tell you if they did or not. I think one year we probably had 6 field goal kickers.
And sometimes you just wouldn't send the kicker out there. It'd be like, you're just like, I'm done with kickers. I can't handle another miss.
Yeah, I mean, I see these guys at kick for us. Cairo Santos missed 4 field goals against the Bills. Bills were good. They're still good. I mean, Josh Allen, you know what I mean? A great defense. 4 field goals. You know, the last field goal he missed was that 4th one against the Bills. And then he goes to Chicago. I don't think the guy's missed
No,
since.
he's been actually money.
Money. It was unreal.
Yeah.
And I'd watch every week. I'm like, oh, Greg Joseph. He could only kick 52-yarders when he was in Tennessee. Apparently, he made a 65-yarder or whatever he did to win the game. I'm like, nice kick, Greg. These guys are great guys. Apparently, they get down here on the Broadway.
Yeah,
they can't. They can't make them.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we Nick Folk was fantastic for us last year, and I joke, but we had certainly
some bad luck,
some bad breaks there.
Yeah,
bad luck. So that was it. It was bad luck at the kicker position. In that time period Vrabel's talking about, they had, by my count, 2 holders, Brett Kern and Ryan Stonehouse. Technically more if you want to throw like Ty Zentner in there last year, or remember when they took the guy off the FedEx truck and he punted that game and it was a disaster. They technically had more, but for the most part, Brett Kern and Ryan Stonehouse, right? 2 holders.
I think so. Tannehill never really held, right?
Nope. He held in the Colts game last year, and then he missed the extra point.
Yeah.
3 long snappers: Bo Brinkley, Matt Overton, Morgan Cox.
They've all been pretty good.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 kickers: Ryan Suckup, Cairo Santos, Cody Parkey, Greg Joseph, Steven Gostkowski, Sam Schloman, Randy Bullock, Michael Badgley, and Nick Folk. Did I leave anybody out?
Nothing comes to mind, but
okay,
I'm sure we're missing somebody in there somewhere.
Well, remember they had the Ryan Santoso, and he kicked off.
Yeah.
But 9 kickers. So you had 9 kickers over that. What was the one constant? Wasn't the snapper. Wasn't the holder. Wasn't the kicker. And all these guys have kicked somewhere else. Suckup kicked in the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Santos has hit 90% of his kicks in Chicago. Joseph is in Minnesota. Now, Gostkowski retired, but he had won a Super Bowl before he got there. Randy Bullock stinks. Badgley is still kicking today for the Lions, and Nick Folk did an okay job last year. What's the one
He
constant?
did a good job.
What's the one constant? Aukerman, the special teams coach, the one that Vrabel, no matter how many screw-ups they had over the years, it was never, ever, ever his fault. And there's Vrabel on Pardon My Take, and Vrabel's like, I have no idea why these guys can't kick for my team. Well, even if you're right and I'm wrong, which I'm right and you're wrong because Ryan Stonehouse doesn't have a leg right now because I was right and you were wrong, and then you fired the guy the next day. But even if you're right and I'm wrong, guess what? When it comes to the special teams coach and all, guess what? Maybe you should try it my way and see if it works, because your way doesn't. And that's the only logical explanation. Thank you. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 1025-106 for the game.
what's the expectation we should be having for the Titans? Are we winning it all this year? Is this it?
I tell our guys.
Can I
all
tell
the time.
Jack and Garrett back there, who've been Titans fans since the inception of Tennessee, that we're going to win the Super Bowl?
I tell our guys all the time that we don't make any predictions or promises. So I certainly can't step out here and
that's good media.
And say
that's good media
anything
right
other
there.
than that. I will say this though: I am excited about what we've done, the players we've added. I think they're all, we added with Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd and D Hop coming back and Tony Pollard mixing him with Tajay Spears, and you get a chance to draft J.C. Latham, and you got year 2 for Peter Skoronski, and now you go sign Lloyd Cushenberry at the Sun. Like, I feel like there's some really exciting pieces that, if we can put it all together, I think we have a chance. And obviously I believe in Will Levis. It's a large reason why I took the job, is that I think he's capable of being a really good player. And he has not disappointed so far in the offseason program. He's fantastic. Does everything you ask the way you want it. And I'm excited to see what we have. I'll leave it at that. I think we can put together a competitive football team.
Ian, that's your coach, Brian Callahan, right there.
Yeah, it is.
Excited for the season. It's again, it's the official expectations day. I came up with 5-12 based on the will win, should win, toss-ups, so should lose, will lose. Ian came up with 4-13. USA Today apparently put out their record predictions, 6-11 for the Titans.
Okay, so slightly more optimistic than we are.
Yeah, but you're picking like 5th at 6-11.
Yeah.
Patriots are 3-14. Giants, Panthers, and Broncos are 4-13. Seahawks are 5-12. Vikings 5-12.
They have a tough schedule to begin. I don't know if you've seen the Vikings schedule, but the first 6 weeks are hard.
Do you think that's why they'll make Sam Darnold the starting quarterback so that he can go through that and then turn it over to JJ?
I think that's probably fair. Yeah.
Okay. So that being said, you will not take away my joy for the fact that when I put my head on that pillow this morning and I take it up off that pillow tonight, and then I take my head off that pillow tomorrow morning, it will be football season. Training camp starts tomorrow. All the things we've talked about since the Titans fired Mike Vrabel, none of that matters. All the topics we've done, I'm not going to lie to you, outside of the NHL and the Predators, we've quite frankly just been killing time, waiting for football season. And we're here. We have one more minute of this show, and then when we talk to you tomorrow, the Titans will have already had their pre-camp or their beginning of camp press conference. We made it. We did it. We made it together as a group. So I don't care about the Olympics. I don't care about the NBA. Hockey right now is gone anyways. There's not enough people that like one baseball team to talk about it. I do care about what happens to Bally Sports at the end of the month. But other than that, we've made it.
Football, baby.
It's football season. We did it. We made it. We made it through the summer.
Congrats to everyone.
We made it through the spring. We made it through the winter. Really, ever since the Super Bowl. We'll use the Super Bowl. We've made it. That's it for us. ESPN Radio's next. Tomorrow at 2:00, we will have broken the barrier. We will have been there. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.